No.
Yes. I mean, no, like, yeah, it's horrible, but like, yeah,
Yeah,
like,
that happened.
yeah,
Why are the Winx comics so unhinged?
I
Hello?
don't know. They were dark.
Hey there, welcome to the Winx Forever podcast. I'm Lola, creator, host, and lifelong Winx fan. I'm taking a deep dive into the very cool universe of Winx Club. So whether you've been a Winx fan since 2004, like myself, or you vaguely remember it from your childhood, or even if you're being introduced to it for the first time, I want to say welcome. This is the Winx Forever podcast. Hello, fairy friends. Welcome back to another Fate Season 2 rewatch episode of the Winx Forever podcast. I am your host, Lola Valentine, and of course, I am joined by my guest co-host, Dane, or you might know him as JustDaneDane on TikTok. Dane! We've made it to episode 4!
I know, I'm so excited. This episode's so smooth, and it's a journey. I cannot wait for people to hear what we have to say about it.
I'm diving into this episode so much happens. Like there's so much to unpack, and I feel like up until now we've only just been wrapping up some loose ends from season 1 of Fate, right? Like Saul Silva's jailbreak, the whole like, oh, Rosalind's good now, JK, you know, and then plus we have the absolute gymnastics these writers had to go through to get rid of Sam Harvey so that there could be a possibility of Ravusa in Fate for once. And so, yeah, and of course we had the introduction of Flora. So now we're like poised for a really stellar second half of season 2 of Fate the Winx Saga. Yeah, I'm really stoked. So just jumping right into it, the episode 4 of Fate the Winx Saga season 2 is titled An Hour Before the Devil Fell. And the synopsis reads, a pub night in town is interrupted by an alarming news about Beatrix sending the students into dangerous confrontation with a mysterious blood witch. Wow, that sets us up for getting into all of it. So let's, jump right in with breaking down the episode scene by scene and discussing what we just rewatched. Last episode, of course, ended with Beatrix being attacked by one of the scrapers that, Rosalind has been studying in the East Wing. And as it turns out, she has been missing now for 3 days. So Andreas is in Rosalind's office wanting to offer up another fairy, in exchange for Beatrix, but Rosalind tells him that this is exactly why she didn't want him to form emotional attachments to Beatrix while they were in hiding. Of course, Andreas is Andreas, and so he, regardless of Rosalind's orders, he kind of like sneakily goes behind her back and visits Marcus, Marco.
Marco, yeah.
Have I been calling him Marcus this whole time? Probably.
I think we both call him Marcus and Marco throughout the podcast.
Well, he goes and he visits Hot Marco in the chemistry room and freaking attacks him and is like just like out of nowhere is like, oh, like I'm gonna attack this guy. It seems like a good idea. It's Hot Marco. Oh my god!
Comes up right behind him and like strangles him. Like,
yes. Oh my god.
But and then
it cuts to credits, and then that is the cold open for this episode. If that tells you anything about where we're going.
It gets dark.
It does. Really fast. Yeah.
Like, especially with the intro with like Rosalind talking about like, this is exactly why I told you not to form emotional attachments. It's like, not to Sky, not to Beatrix, who he had to raise anyways. Like, how can you tell somebody to raise somebody like their own and then like say don't form emotional attachments?
Yeah, which is so funny of Rosalind to say because later in this episode, she obviously was emotionally attached to Andreas.
Yes,
like,
exactly.
I'm like, I'm sorry, everyone else is not allowed to, but you are, Miss Rosalind.
Weird
hello,
Rosalind way, yeah,
yeah.
Ugh,
I hate it. I hate her.
Right? That whole dynamic though, like the fact that he cares about Beatrix more than his own son. You know, it goes back to that thing about not father,
Yes.
not son relationships are complicated. Like, I'm just like, oh my gosh.
Yes. Jeez. So after the credits, we are in, Althea, and the school is buzzing in awe of Bloom possessing, obviously, the legendary dragon flame that we learned last episode. And Aisha and Bloom are conversing, in the everything hall that is right now their cafeteria
Yeah.
hall, with each other about their classwork and trying to understand blood witches. And it's Aisha trying to decipher Bloom's notes was so cute. Like that felt very like, I don't know. Like they're like a lot of the show, there are glimmers of it that are normal, you know what I mean?
Mhm.
And then not so much, I don't know, just so I don't know how to
Raw
say it.
relatable
Like,
human moments. Like,
yes,
yeah. And
yeah,
we get a lot of
yeah.
that with Bloom and Aisha too, that fire versus water best friends
Mm-hmm.
aesthetic that like I feel like
Yeah.
we see more in the later seasons of the animated series where Aisha and Bloom come like they become a little bit closer versus
Yeah.
like Bloom and Stella's dynamic, which is always there, but like here it's
Right.
like very Bloom Aisha. So
Totally. Yeah, and I love that. So Bloom is still thinking that Rosalind is a bit on the shady side, but she is glad to have her on their side, at least fighting the Blood Witches, of course. And then because Silva is back magically and everything's fine, he returns to his former duty, and it's like Sky, they're out training, and Sky's like, "Oh, it's like he never left." And it's like,
yeah.
yeah, because it was
Yeah,
dumb that they took him away in the first place. Like the writers were like,
right.
"Oh shoot, like actually we need
Right. I think the pardon was like
him."
it's I don't know. Like I see why Rosalind's using Silva as just another chess piece on the board, but at the same time, like
Yeah.
it's gonna stir up so many problems for everybody, which is
It
exactly what we see.
does.
Yeah, it really
Yes.
does. But I love
Absolutely.
that parallel though, like with the girls, like when Bloom and Aisha are walking through the hallway, we see all the students conversing with each other, like, oh my gosh, it's the
Yes.
legendary Bloom, Keeper of the Dragon Flame. And
Yeah.
it's such a parallel to season one when they found out she was a changeling and everybody's
Mhm.
talking shit in the hallways and there's just gossip going
Right.
everywhere, like
Ugh.
complete 180.
Absolutely. And I also like that it's a very realistic look of like what other students could have been saying about Bloom in the original series as well. Like we
Yeah,
kind of
yeah,
like get to see that. And I really love that about Fate, is that we do get glimpses of like kind of like more like relatable moments like that with like things like this, because yeah, like in Winx Club the original series, like like it's a cartoon, like it doesn't go
yeah, it's
super
not the
deep.
same.
Yeah, it's not the same. But then, like, when we see it here, it's just like, oh, yeah, that totally would happen. People would be talking about her. Like, that's like one of the, like, I think that's something that the Four Kids dub did really well,
Agreed.
especially in
Oh
the
my
first
gosh, yeah,
season, like kind of bringing in that realistic element to it. But I like how Fate is doing it here as well.
same. Also, like the fact that Bloom's wearing green, we have to talk about that because with Bloom being based on like loosely based on Bridget, especially in this one where it's like very like focused on like the Celtic underlayers of Winx Club that were like kind of always
Hmm.
there in the background. Like just
Yeah.
seeing her wearing green with the orange, I'm just like, oh my gosh, this is
Uh,
just kiss. Like I love that.
Yes. That's so great. I love it too. And I mean, honestly, like all of Bloom's looks in this season are so on point. Like, especially
Right?
this
Mm-hmm.
episode. Oh my God. They're like every single one of Bloom's outfits, like I probably would wear personally. Oh my gosh. I can't get over how gorgeous their outfits are, how gorgeous Abby's hair
Oh
is
my
in this
God.
season.
Yes,
Like,
phenomenal.
it a next level, like truly, like she was already perfect for Bloom, but like wow,
Mhm.
like season two is such a glow up for like everybody, and it's crazy.
Right. It's like literally the spitting image, like in that season two promo picture where she's like breaking through the veil. She's like the
Yeah.
spitting image of one of the depictions of Bridget. And I'm just like, oh my gosh. Like I'll have to send you the photo, but it's
Yes.
wild. Like perfect
Absolutely.
casting.
I love that.
Oh, that banter that we were talking about though, like, Aisha and Bloom
Yes.
talking about Gray, because Aisha's clearly slipping behind on her schoolwork and she's like, oh, I've just been focused on swimming. And then Bloom's like, oh, that's what they're
Mm.
calling it now, huh? What's Gray's favorite stroke? Like, She's like butterfly, like the academic
I
she is. Like,
know.
oh my gosh.
She's so cute. It took me a long time to appreciate this iteration of Aisha, of like our Fairy
Mm-hmm.
of Waves. Like, as an academic here, we know that Aisha, the character in Winx Club series, is very smart, but she's smart in a different way that Fate Aisha is smart. Like, Fate Aisha definitely feels like a combination of Aisha and like Tekna in that
Yeah, she
way.
definitely acquired that like academic side of Tecna too. So,
Yes, and like also like accessing her emotions and stuff,
mm-hmm.
which we see in the Winx Club series with Tekna. So like I think I do like that element is still present even though Tekna isn't.
Yeah, same. Oh, we have to talk about the Dominion Wars too, because that's mentioned here.
Oh
Like,
yeah, there's like
yeah,
so much lore that they just like kind of like jumble all up and like just throw into this like little small scene.
and you'll miss it
Like
if like you like I missed it the first time I watched it, and then it
yeah.
it clicked for me after watching it with this rewatch. But like a retrospectively genius scene, truly though, like with the foreshadowing of their conversation kind of playing out throughout this episode. Like Aisha's talking about how like she knows about blood witches and Bloom snatches her phone and
Mhm.
then quizzes Aisha on the Dominion Wars, like Domino, like for Winx Club
Mhm.
fans. But then like she said something like back then the blood witches were so powerful that, and then Aisha was like they could control people's bodies from miles away, which is what we may or may not see later on. So and it's also
Yep.
setting the stage for how things have changed. Like now the perception
Ooh,
of blood
yeah.
witches is that that's not what's going on. Like they don't have that kind of power, but
Right.
we'll find out. And the fact that the dragon flame hasn't been seen since the Dominion Wars, which were like 1,000 years ago, because this talks about
Mhm.
the fact that like Aisha is like, well, if it hasn't been seen for 1,000 years, then it's not hereditary,
Mhm.
which is a really big, key plot point that we'll find out a little bit later. But like that's like
Yes.
a big thing that I don't think was ever addressed properly in the Winx Club.
I don't
Wasn't
think
there a
so.
time issue in the cartoon?
So, yes, in Winx Club, it was kind of like Harry Potter, right? How like the Harry Potter universe, it was only like what, like 10, 11 years ago
Mm-hmm. It
when
was like 16 or something for
for Winx
Fate,
Club it
but
was only
yeah.
16. And it's like there yeah, there's a huge disconnect because like in the Winx series like 16 years ago, why did Farragonda and Griffin look so much younger and like
Mm-hmm.
all that stuff?
Yes.
There's that. So a lot of like the fan theory is that Daphne sent Bloom into a time portal because in one of the books, in one of the officially licensed like printed books, the Encyclopedia or whatever it's called, and there is mention of a time portal and Daphne sending Bloom through a time portal. So
Oh
it
wow.
is
Okay.
in some part of the Winx franchise universe, whatever. It was at one point probably canonically like known that that happened, but it wasn't well described in the series, and it's annoying because because just like in the Harry Potter series, like everyone talks about that time long ago, like,
Hmm.
and it wasn't like 16 years ago isn't that
Yeah.
long.
Like how would
And it
Domino go from looking like that to that in 16
right.
years?
Exactly.
Okay.
How did Griffin and Saladin and Farragonda age like 100 years? And
Yeah, they
so
they got to be really old too. Like if you think about it, if it really was a time portal from like thousands of years ago, like how would they be able to? Didn't the Company of Light fight during like the war on
yes.
Domino too? That makes no.
Yes.
Okay,
It
so
makes
this is like
yeah.
a huge fix on that.
Yes, it is.
I
It
love
really,
that.
really is. I do
Oh my
too. And
gosh.
like, I love that they like were like, oh yeah, Bloom was in stasis that whole time. I was like,
Hmm.
of course she was. Duh, that's the
Right?
only thing that makes sense. And so like, yeah, I love that. And also too, I can't remember in the original series if Bloom was born with the Dragonfire or if Daphne gave it to her. From my
Hmm.
understanding, and I think that might be for kids like me remembering the 4 kids stuff, Daphne gave the flame to Bloom and she became the guardian of the dragon flame and not Daphne. And so Daphne died
Yes.
protecting Bloom and the flame. Oh my god. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
like
and then it's rewritten later that she already had the curse of Cyrenix. I don't
I
know.
reject
It's
that
yeah.
wholeheartedly.
I can't even. Can't wrap my head around it.
I showed this to my older sister. She came and visited a couple weeks ago, and I was like, "Hey, don't judge me, but like, look at this cool doll I got." And I showed it to her, and somebody, a friend of mine who was also there, she was like, "Would you ever cosplay her?" And I was like, "Yes." I'm
Fabric
like,
though, like for the swooshy things and all that.
God.
Like I'd
And
be
I would
tripping over it. So.
I would want stilts, so like that would be like so hard. But I was like telling them all about like Daphne and like how this is her spirit form, not her corporeal form. And they just like sat through this whole thing of me explaining why it was like this and whatever. And they were like, this was a kid's show that came on Saturday morning. So I was like, yes,
that's what we've been trying to tell you guys. Like,
they're like, that got dark so quick. I said, I know, and that was season 1.
It's not even the surface of it all. So, but that makes sense if she passed it on, because like in the 4Kids opening, we see that like Winx Just Fairies clip of Daphne holding the flames. So
exactly.
Oh my gosh. Oh, good.
Yeah, it's great.
So Rosalind brings up the fact that like the dragon flame arises in great conflict, and Aisha is just, always usually right. Aisha's usually right. The golden rule of fate is just like so skeptical of Rosalind, and kind of how Bloom's just letting her guard down a little bit too much.
Yeah, and at this point, I can't remember, like, do we think that at this point Rosalind knows more about Bloom's history than she's letting on?
100%, because she gave Bloom the book on Marion.
That's
and how she sealed herself and summoned the shadow creature and then sealed herself in the realm of darkness. And she's bringing up the Dominion Wars. I think she knows where Bloom has come from. On top of the fact she knew about the dragon flame burning inside our changeling friend, right?
That's very Farragonda coded. I know that Rosalind is not Farragonda, but like in the original series, she knew all along. She's like, but you needed to discover it for yourself. It's like, excuse me, ma'am. Yeah, I could have gone through like so much less crap if you just told me up front who I was and what I was doing here. Like, oh my gosh.
But yeah, there's a good message in this. There's a really good message encoded within people not giving Bloom the direct answers. Even the people that are hiding it from her to, take advantage of her.
Just trust the process, right?
Right.
Meanwhile, Rosalind is leading combat training with the specialists, stressing that fairy magic being ineffective against scrapers, it's now time for the specialists to shine. She introduces Silva, saying he'll be taking over range combat training at Althea, and like obviously Sky is like ticked, like
having a good time, like he's
not having a good time.
He's complaining because like with Silva gone, Sky had so much more freedom, and now that he's back, he's going to be on his case again. So
yeah, that's true.
And he's got issues with Silva's dishonesty towards him previously, which Riven is just like over Sky complaining, considering Andreas almost like took off his arm during training. Like Riven, he doesn't want to hear it. Like he knows who's the better of the two evils, like
right.
And I say that so loosely because I don't see Silva as a bad guy, but like
no, and it's wild too because I feel like in some like messed up fate riven way that he is trying to like reassure Sky that Silva is so much better than Andreas as even like a father figure too. Like it's excuse me, it's not just that like, oh, Andreas is like a dick, but like also Silva is not and has raised you, like he's kind of like in his own way being like, come on, man, like lighten up. Like at least he's not Andreas,
Right. And I should also say too, instead of saying like not thinking he's a bad guy, because everybody in the show is beyond good or evil. It's such a spectrum of like nuance and raw humanity, how nobody's perfect. So but because like thinking about season 1 and Astrodel, I was like, well, he did play Handyman, but he didn't really there's a lot going on here. But at the same time, that's fate. Sometimes things just unfold the way they do. Like that's how the universe works. But
that's literally fate.
Sky talks about how like Beatrix is gone, apparently that like she was on some like courier mission for Rosalind. That's the cover story that's being spread around, but we know that's not the case at this point. Like, unless she's like, bringing the scrapers to people's doors, delivering mail. Like, I don't know. Like, no way. So Riven's all like, glad that nightmare is over regarding Beatrix, sharing a glance with Dane before missing his own targets, blaming the arrows. And then we see Dane just hit all three of them. Perfect aim.
Mm-hmm.
Like, solid. I love the magical arrows in this, by the way. Like,
I do too. I think
yeah,
that they're really cute and it reminds me of like what a specialist like weapon should be and sound and look like. Like
like an
it's
energy
just
weapon. Like,
yes. Yeah.
yeah.
I love that.
So I'm glad that they're like actually useful here too, especially because like, fairies can't be around scrapers, but the specialists can. So
Yeah. Which like
yeah.
isn't there is some arc in Winx Club where that is the case. Oh, I'm thinking of when they're in the wildlands and the fairies can't use
Mm,
their magic there and the specialists are assigned to them to protect them
yeah.
because they can't use their yeah.
And that's
Uh
also the case in the comics too. The specialists come in for when there are monsters with no fantasy, whatever that means. I don't know what it means, but
like no magic, like we're just real monsters.
like I don't know. I guess there's like a certain type of monster where like the
Oh,
fairy magic doesn't
interesting.
work on it. So yeah.
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 All right.
Strange, but it's in there. So
Yeah.
all those three targets. After Dane hits all of his targets, we see like a nod of approval from Luke, who's on the other side. So like they're
Yeah.
slowly introducing Luke into this mix. So we don't get a lot of him, but he's slowly like entering the picture more and more throughout the series. So
Yeah.
it's just a
Ugh.
background building. Love the smooth transition to Rosalind and Musa because that entire thing is just such a good introspective journey into like where Musa's at as a character at this
Yeah.
point. Like obviously Sam's left, and so she's really like down. And Rosalind like stresses the fact that mind fairies can block blood witch magic, and so
Yeah.
she simulates a blood witch attack on Dane, asking Musa to block it, and she's just not
Mhm.
having it. Like she has no interest in participating. She just gives up and is like, I told you I couldn't do it. Like,
Yeah.
she even makes comments about like, oh, my magic hasn't been very useful recently. Like, oh, so she's
Uh,
struggling like hardcore.
yeah.
But
For real. But you can also see the frustration in Musa as she is instructed by Rosalind, like versus when she was being instructed by Dowling in season one. It's like everything Dowling did for Musa to build her up in season one has just been absolutely destroyed by like Sam leaving, and now Rosalind's very like uninspiring and unhelpful, like magic instructions. It's a lot for Musa, like no wonder. Well, I don't want to give any spoilers yet, but like no wonder we see the
no
things
wonder
that
things happen the
happen.
way they happen.
Oh yeah,
So
you can see it. It's building,
yeah,
and it
like
keeps
this is like the
building.
first part where we really see her start to kind of like she rejected her magic in that moment. Yeah.
Yeah, which she's always done, and when she finally got to a spot where she was like happy with like or found a way that she thought she could help with her magic, like it she was using it maybe like for ill-intended purposes, like, and she didn't even
Hmm.
know it. So yeah, it's just,
Yeah.
our girl's down bad.
Her confidence is just tanked
Ugh,
there, but
yeah,
that
it's so
happens
sad.
sometimes. That's life, like the journeys of life.
Truly,
So
yeah, for sure. Do you want to get this next section?
yeah, I'd love to. So while cleaning the greenhouse, Flora and Tara discuss the scraper and their excitement about Amy Leroy, becoming the professor, aka Professor Defoir, like the loose adaptation. But the conversation shifts to Tara missing Harvey and Sam, with Tara placing blame on Musa in her, Tara kind of way. Like
Mm-hmm.
with tension sparking, Flora excuses herself to go check on Musa at the Bastion, saying she needed to go meet a friend there anyways. And when Tara asks who it was, Flora reveals it's Ribbon, and things just get so awkward, leaving
Oh
like
my
this
god.
unspoken conflict hanging in the air of the shot. So
Totally. Oh my gosh. Oh my
it's just
gosh.
this whole scene that like the tension really starts when we see Flora like light up about the scraper, and she's like wondering like what it evolved from, and really
Yeah.
tapping into that science side, right? And Tara's response is just so dismissive, like maybe nothing because it's from the realm of freaking darkness,
I
like,
know.
and it
I
just
know.
amplifies, right? Like her attitude just gets more and more agitated throughout this whole scene. The the passive aggressiveness. It's in a flowery way.
It really is, and it's very funny. Also, in this scene, has the specialist training area outside the castle ever been referred to as the Bastion? Because
Yes, it has.
has
I didn't
it?
realize it. It's like the Solarian ring being forgotten in here. I feel like for some reason we've also forgotten that this place is called the Bastion because I forgot too. I had to look it
I
up.
I
Like,
I had no idea. I was like, I don't remember that ever being in the series until right now. Because when she
mhm.
said like, "Oh, I'm going to meet, them at the Bastion," I was like, "What are they referring to right now?"
Yeah.
I was
I
so
think it's like,
confused.
isn't it the garage area where like all the specialist jeeps and stuff are?
Oh, I don't know. I
I
thought
think
it was the area with
it could
the
be.
lake and the training platforms that they knock each other into the lake with or whatever.
Yeah, I just
I don't
remember in
know.
season one when Silva got attacked by the burn one and was in the school, they took him to the Bastion. And then in season
Oh
two,
yeah.
Tara sends Riven on a mission to the Bastion or something, and then Kat pushes him out like in that first episode.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Or was it second episode? I don't remember. But she does like send him on a mission at some
That
point.
makes sense. Yeah, I was so confused because I was like, what is the Bastion? And then I thought like Bastion was like either like the pub in Blackbridge or that it was like what Sebastian called his store, the Bastion, because it was like part of
Hmm.
his name. And I was like, that doesn't make sense. But I'm glad to know that like at least some thought was put into the specialist like training area because like it's not my favorite. This whole
Hmm.
specialist thing, like being combined into Althea, feels like an afterthought to me. And I'm
It's a
just like,
budget thought.
oh
Like,
yeah, it
but it also
oh
like
big
lets so much more unfold because they're like in such close
because they're
proximity.
together. Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
They don't have to work so hard to like see each other. Like they don't have to like crash in the middle of a swamp to like
Hmm.
go on an adventure together.
Okay, so outside Rosalind's office, we see Stella's text messages that she's looking in Beatrix's desk for like emergency
Mhm.
whiskey, and also seeing how Beatrix hasn't responded to her at all,
Yeah.
like since the banquet. So she really is like missing in action, right? She opens a drawer, finds a pair of Crocs inside, looks up at the sky, just a cute little moment. To which
Uh,
Bloom enters the room, asking Stella what she's doing there. And there's this
mhm.
awkward exchange that we will find out why later on in the show, but
Mhm.
it gets even more awkward because right as Stella says she's just there to see if a package came in from her mother, Rosalind comes in and they exchange looks and she exits the room.
She gives a little like hello headmistress or whatever, like good afternoon or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Like and I was just like, ooh, like that was
Oh,
layered in ice. Like, oh
right.
my
Layered
gosh.
in the
Ugh.
gem. It's layered in, her dynamic with Bloom and like, not talking
Mm-hmm.
about the gem. And then also like Bloom and Rosalind together. She's like, oh, so
So much there.
yeah.
Oh my God. Ah, yeah.
Entering Rosalind's office, Bloom reveals she aced the Blood Witch quiz and is eager to confront them, like considering, they kidnapped her as a baby, or so she thinks. Rosalind tells Bloom that the time has to be right before they can go after the Blood Witches. And with like
Mm-hmm.
Bloom's eagerness, Rosalind also says that she can't risk Bloom coming into harm's way at all.
Mm-hmm.
As Rosalind tells Bloom that Beatrix was kidnapped and there's likely a Blood Witch within the school, we see Andreas dragging Marco's
Ah!
body close to the river throughout the forest. Oh
Oh.
my gosh. Rosalind saying, number one, like, oh, I want you to reread 3 days worth of reports. Meanwhile, Bloom just wants to get in on the action. Like, oh
Mm-hmm.
my gosh. No way. I'm not rereading
Yeah.
3 pages of reports.
Yeah. It's very much like
Or 3 days
Bloom.
worth. Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
that is so ingrained in the character of Bloom, like just like
Hmm.
action oriented.
Right.
Like and I
Impulsive.
love that.
Like,
Yes, very impulsive. It gives me like it reminds me of like season 2 and 3 Bloom, even like season 1 Bloom in Winx Club.
hmm.
Like it's just so her instinct to like act before like really like getting the whole story or whatever. Like that is Bloom to a T, and I love it
Or
about her.
far, like dumping that plant on Riven's head. Like, so.
Yes. Oh my God, so true.
I love how when Bloom gets all like cocky about the dragon flame and she like wisps it in her hand, Rosalind like stresses that it wouldn't save her from a knife in the back because it really highlights how like, the stakes are so much higher here in
Oh,
this Winx universe.
yo.
It's
I
it's not
mean,
a matter of magical like bursts and you're knocked out. Like people fight dirty. So
yes, it is. And I'm telling you, like, the stakes are so incredibly high. And, like, I feel like this episode is one of the first episodes that, like, it feels so much, like, higher. Like, higher than, like, season 3 of Winx Club when, like, Valtor was literally coming for
mhm.
anyone and everyone that got in his way. Like this feels like exactly like that to me. Just like volume turned
Elevated.
up to,
Like we have
yeah,
never seen a Winx
absolutely.
story through a lens like this. Like this level is
No, yeah.
a whole new ground for everybody.
Yeah, it's not just like, yeah, like you said, like magical energy bursts. It's like, no, like people will kill you. You will die. There's no electric booty kick in this season,
No.
in this series at all. Oh my
Uh,
god. Oh my god. I'm crying.
so Rosalind like stresses to Bloom to keep quiet about this whole thing, right?
Oh,
And
yeah.
she's like, she starts going on this clearly targeted rant about Andreas, who, we see in that shot, dragging Marco
Ah!
across the forest. And I love the back and forth between the dragging and Rosalind. Like
Oh, the
it's so
storytelling
fun and
of that, like
funny.
editing, it
Yes.
is very funny. And I'm just
Oh
like,
my gosh.
oh my gosh. And I love too, and I've said this before, but I love when a series like gives the audience information that the main characters don't have yet. And because
Mm.
you're all like, oh my God, they don't know,
Right.
you
They
know?
have no idea this is
Oh,
happening, but we do. Like
yes,
it's
I
I
know.
feel that.
I love that. Well, so I told you, but I when I rewatched this episode again, I was literally at the gym last night. I was just like, jogging on the treadmill, watching it. When this happened, I was like, oh no, hot Marcus, like, or Marco, hot Marco, and like I probably said Marcus, but yeah, it was just like the people around me were probably like, oh my God, what is this girl watching?
Yeah, like oh, the drama of fate will do that to you. Like there are so many
It
times watching
will.
this where I say things out loud watching this show because it's
Yeah,
just so it's that kind of show. Like especially when you
yeah.
something that you haven't seen before, like
Hmm.
rewatching it, you're just like so blown away.
Yes, I audibly gasped several times, like when Andreas strangled Marco, and like when
Yes.
in a minute, like, oh, there's another scene that I could not watch. I like had to be like,
Oh yeah, I
no.
know what you're talking about.
Ugh. Gross. But yeah, we'll get there. Get even more magical content when you follow Winx Forever Podcast on social media. Because they're not referred to as the Winx girls in the Fate the series,
Yeah.
I've been trying to distinguish that they're Winx suite mates because they don't call
Oh,
themselves the
okay.
Winx because
Yeah,
their
yeah.
suite is called the Winx. So they're suite mates. If that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense.
Okay,
Okay.
cool, great.
So despite the danger at hand, the Winx suite mates minus Stella get ready in the suite and go out for drinks with the specialists and the others at the pub. So the
Woo!
sweet mate moment, we have to talk about it because it is
Yes,
so golden. Like all the little
it's so sweet.
interactions. Oh
Oh,
my gosh.
yeah.
Just
And like Tara like stressing about her hair. It very much gives me like season one vibes of when they were all getting
mhm,
ready for the party. And oh my God, it's so
right.
cute. So
Really
incredibly cute.
is. Mhm.
Hello?
It's such a breath of fresh air. Like, everybody's like moving around in like varied social dynamics, even more complex. Like you see so many different interactions here. Like
Yes.
it's great.
I know. I think it's so much fun. And I love this whole scene because it does lend a lot from Winx Club, like the series. Like it, for me, like the club scene in season three, when, especially with like Nabu and Aisha's romance, blossoming and there, and, to the dancing that Aisha and Musa do in Gardenia in season two, like even just the fact that they are sneaking out of Althea, like it's just so Winx coded.
And it's
How many
everybody,
times in
it's
the
all the
series?
students.
Right.
So
Yeah, it's all of them. And so like I love the scene so much, and it's a good reminder that like, oh yeah, they are a bunch of teens in a boarding school. Like of
yeah.
course they would go do this. Like
It's like
yeah.
literally the whole school is like, oh, Rosalind's out of town, like everybody's going to the pub, like, and then a
Yeah.
bunch of people go. So
Right.
it's just great. Like I love that so much.
It's so fun. I wonder, where are the adults? Like we know Rosalind's gone. Marcus and Andreas, well, they have a previous engagement. And then where is Silva? He's the only adult left in the school. We've not seen the lunch lady.
Well, he's
She's
got to
not in
be.
this.
He's we haven't seen Doris. Like,
Dora,
where
Dora, she's not here. She saw Rosalind and was like, bye. Here's my 2 week
Rosalind got rid of her.
Yeah, so like all the adults like
I guess they're
couldn't
adulting.
be
Like,
found.
well,
I
yeah,
guess maybe, but like
yeah,
this is a whole school of like minors. Maybe like we should keep an eye on them, maybe a little bit more. I
yeah,
don't know.
right.
I'm like, and like they're like royal minors too. They're like not just
Mhm.
like Winx. It's like Winx Club. It's like Alfea and Winx Club. Like they're a bunch of princesses and like highborns and all this stuff.
Mhm.
And it's like,
It's the best school in the realm. Like that's how they portray it here.
right,
So
right.
like,
Where are the adults? Anyway, so, but that's like that. It is for Winx Club as well. Like I
mm,
don't like Alfea as big as it is, and even like Red Fountain. Like there's only 2, Saladin and Quatorta. Like they only get 2 professors.
yeah.
Like, yeah, there's a lot that's like not fleshed out there, but like that's okay.
And it's weird because in the comics there are so many more like other people
Yes.
at the school.
Yeah.
So like it's just, it's one of those things
Oh,
where you really have to like get into it like that.
yeah. Oh,
Right?
for sure.
We see a bunch of distinct entrances and pair-offs here as they enter the pub. Like we've got the Wink Sweet girls, minus Stella, then
Hmm.
Sky who comes in and pairs off with Bloom, and then we've got
Yep.
Riven who enters as a lone wolf, which is like so very Riven, and we can tell we
Yeah.
can see like fist bumps with Sky on his way in. I love the way the body language talks in this show. It's the benefit of a live action series that we just
Yeah,
don't get in the
definitely.
cartoon. We even see Dane, Cat, and Luke enter as a trio.
Yeah.
So that's a nice little pair off because we saw them
Like the top like
previously.
specialists like of
Yeah,
Althea like coming in, like I
right.
love it.
Same. And then we see, that scene with Aisha's like trick shot where she's making like
The
she's
Irish.
making the shot glasses like float above the pint glasses.
Hmm.
And then she
For
drops
the
them
Irish
in.
car bomb. I don't know if that's like an appropriate name for like that's what those drinks are called, but like I don't
Oh,
know if
really?
like it's an Irish car bomb. They're not fun. I mean, if you like drinking, they're really fun. But
Yeah.
ugh. Yeah.
Mixing alcohol though, like Aisha said, mixing alcohol with cheap alcohol.
Yeah, I think Bloom said that.
Oh, was it?
Alcohol, cheap alcohol.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. No, it for real. I think it's supposed to be like it's supposed to be a like Jägermeister and the shot glass and in the
Mhm.
pint is supposed to be Guinness. And so you put them both together and it's an Irish. Yeah. Anyway.
Gotcha. But it's so funny that like Bloom isn't drinking the Guinness, like she's pretending to drink because we know that Abby, like
Abby
that's the first thing
loved
she asks
it.
for, like showing up to Ireland. Oh, I'll take a Guinness. That's just
So
so funny.
funny.
Okay, so then Sebastian arrives. So Bloom ducks out from the group, to which Sky
Hmm.
excuses himself to go find, Riven vomiting in a corner somewhere, but he's really just
Hmm.
kind of leaving Gracia, alone in their little pairing. So
Yeah.
um
Yeah.
yeah.
Wow. I also can we just like point out that like Winx Club Sky would have been so incredibly jealous of Bloom like bowing out to go talk to Sebastian as soon as he entered the pub. Like so at least at this is 1 point for the other world's blandest water biscuit. Like yeah, but then again, like if the bar is like Winx Club series guy, then like the bar is actually on the floor.
Yeah,
I'm just saying.
I love Fate Sky more through this rewatch. Like at first, I didn't really see so much of his character. I wasn't really interested in his story as
Mm,
much, like on the first watch, but the second watch, seeing all of his like nuances and like kind of like
yeah.
why he feels the way he does, like I appreciate him way more this time around. So, but
Yeah.
yeah, I love that he is so much better than Wink Sky. Like he just
Oh my
is. Like
god, he is. And like I said, it's not saying a ton because Wing Sky is like scum, but
like in the comics too, he's on a whole different level. Well, so is Bloom though. Like in the comics,
yeah,
she's not perfect either. There's a lot
some
of flaws.
drama.
Yeah. But
Oh my god.
it's like that's the magic of Winx too, is that representing that these
Mhm.
characters are not perfect,
Yeah,
idealized like people.
definitely.
They've got flaws and quirks to them. So
Totally.
but
Yeah.
the next shot though, with like Riven's personalized drinks for like Flora and Musa and Tara, like attempting to swoon Tara, just kind of falling flat where she's like,
Oh.
she like checks him and he's like, oh, okay, like,
Yeah, but then she's like, "That's really nice." Like, like
Mhm.
thanks. And like, this whole scene is so freaking cute with one of the girls. Like, even in original Winx Club, I loved whenever Riven interacted with anyone that wasn't music.
Like Riven and Flora, like
Yes,
on the
like Riven and
balcony.
Flora.
Yeah.
Can we talk about that real quick?
Yes, we have to talk about this because like
Like Riven and Flora?
that was always an undertone too in like
It
in the cartoon,
was.
in the comics, like before, because like even Musa and Riven aren't really like, I think even like in the 30s of the comics, they're not together technically.
Yeah.
They're like seeing each other, but they're not officially boyfriend and girlfriend for like a hot
No.
minute. So
Yes. And like there's like, oh my gosh. Like did the Fate writers like see that one scene of like Flora and Riven and like just like ran with it? They're like,
mhm.
that.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Write it down.
I think too, like putting it on paper, like the, who's got a boyfriend and who doesn't, like
Yes.
what can we make
Yeah.
out of this, So
Yeah.
yeah,
Ooh, that's true. Oh my God. Incredible.
right. Where are we at? Oh, right
Right
below
there.
that. I scrolled way too far. I don't know why. The tension between Tara and Musa too, like super visible.
Oh.
Like
And
Musa
like Tara's like
channeling her
not
magic.
trying to hide it either.
Right?
Like,
No, like Tara
oh.
cannot help how she feels, like as she says, like, and her like dismissive reply is like the fake happy bullshit that Musa called out in like season one, but like with like passive aggressiveness, like just straight up
Yeah, oh
like
yeah.
the cold shoulder through it. So I noticed when Musa excused herself after this too, like Tara sees her greeting Dane as she walks by to go get napkins. And then Dane talks to Luke about like, oh, that's Musa. Like, I love being able to see that, even though we don't really hear the conversation, but we can tell what he's
Yeah.
saying. Like, that
Hmm.
is such a fun, like, little nuance to throw in there. And
Yeah.
then obviously she's not going to get up and go over there because of her history with Dane. And
Oh,
so
yeah.
she glances to her left and sees, Flora and Riven, which like visibly upsets her. And so
Yeah.
she does what a lot of people do out in public when, they're
Mhm.
uncomfortable. They jump into their phone
Yeah.
and, she escapes to text Stella saying, she misses her. Like, I think that that's like really sweet, even though Stella ignored Tara to, you know, leave
Classic.
a, right, to leave a
Oh,
voicemail for Beatrix.
our voicemail to Beatrix was so sweet. And she was like, I
Right.
found your Crocs. And then she was also like, I know you're gonna think this is pathetic, like two like texts in a row and then a voicemail or something. And it's like, oh my God. Also, Beatrix's voice message to like in her mailbox.
Oh my gosh, yes,
Ah,
it's so sassy.
I love it. I love it so much. I think that every time someone leaves me a voicemail, actually,
Right? Just like
like,
take that
why
little
are you
sound
not
clip.
texting me? Yes, that would be so funny. If people didn't have my number professionally, I would totally do that.
Right.
If like clients didn't call me, like that would be great. Oh
Oh my gosh.
my God. Yeah, I also love that out of everybody that like Tara could have texted, like she could have texted anybody, like she texted Stella, and that is so sweet. Like,
Right.
I love Tara. She
Her like
just wants
tender loving
everybody to get
care.
along. Yeah. So we see Sebastian and Bloom chatting at the front of the pub in a secured little, like secluded area. And they're talking about how the Blood Witches may have entered the school because it sounds like Bloom probably clued Sebastian into like Beatrix getting kidnapped by a blood witch. And so he has run some like research on like the catering company, from the banquet and is giving Bloom like this huge stack of papers to cross-reference when like
I think it's implied that Bloom told Sebastian, right, that Beatrix was kidnapped. Yeah.
but we
Yeah.
didn't get to see that because this is the aftermath of that
Hmm.
happening, right?
It's
And
just kind of
so
assumed through their conversation and what he's
yeah,
talking about. Yeah.
which
But
is funny because Rosalind literally told her don't tell anyone, and she hasn't told
hmm
anyone except for frickin' Sebastian.
right, of all people.
Oh my God. And so like she told freaking Sebastian, and Sebastian like tries to convince Bloom to like not like dive into these papers right away here in a pub when she's supposed to be like having fun and like letting loose and not thinking about all this like really scary dark shit. And it's like Oh my gosh. So Sebastian is like trying to convince her to have fun, and then he gets a text before exiting the pub. But then after he leaves, Bloom rejoins her friends. We can see like Bloom like reject a drink from Tara before like seeing this like montage that we go into of like all the fun that's being had at the pub between all the characters that are there. So like Riven and Flora, Tara and Kat, we actually see interacting outside of Alfea. I love that. And
Right.
then Luke and Dane, and also Gray and Aisha, who conveniently decide to leave the pub, which like they don't like strike me as like pub goers anyway. So like
Hmm.
it makes
The
sense.
athletes, like,
Yes,
yeah,
yeah. The athletes, the academics,
academic
yeah, like
athletes,
it's
yeah. Um, this whole scene is just like a solid one because like you can really see how Bloom kind of withdraws to like, she sees everybody else having fun, but she's taking on that leadership too of like can't really
uh
can't really go do
I'm the
all
main
this.
character. I can't have fun like you guys.
I need to
I
focus on,
have the
figuring this
dragon
out.
flame.
So, but I guess it makes sense though. Like,
It
can you
does.
imagine being a teenager having a power like that? I mean, I would
Ugh.
love it, but like at the same time, like, oh, the responsibility is wild. So,
Yeah, I would be running with scissors for sure.
the first thing he says before their conversation even starts, though, is he's like, looks like somebody's starting early and acknowledges Aisha, who takes a swig of her drink with Gray over in the back corner. And that right there is just like 100% proof that this show was written to be
Mhm.
rewatched because that is something that, like, when you rewatch this whole season, you're just like, oh, that's diabolical.
Yes.
Like,
Yes.
that little nod is just, it's something else.
So true. And that's such a good catch because like yeah, like even like rewatching it, I was like, oh,
Oh
dang.
yeah, right.
Oh.
And then it only gets, well, I guess better. Like I should say better, but like it's also, it gets deeper. I guess that's the best way to say it
Hmm.
because while the in-universe Bloom could like the character could retrospectively in theory like look back on that and be like, "Oh, wait a minute. Didn't he like acknowledge, Gray and Aisha over in the pub? Well, what an evil
Hmm.
jerk." Like the next moment is something that's like written purely for like us as classic Winx fans because we see Bloom remind Sebastian that upon meeting her there, he promised not to tell Silva, because like
Hmm.
they're underage at a pub, right? And he's like, "Don't worry, your secret's safe with me." As he taps on the wood of the bar next to his
Hmm.
initials, which are SV carved back from his younger years at Althea. So like
Yep.
it's kind of assumed that there's like underage drinking that's always happened at this pub, considering he was doing it. But yeah, I just thought it was like, and then it kind of leads into this whole thing about like Sebastian talking about how like Andreas used to degrade him when he was a specialist.
Hmm.
And so he'd go to the pub and like, you know, drink all
Drink all
night.
day.
And then when he admits to kind of like, he even admits to being a loser at some point, like kind of
Hmm.
like in the way he says it, he's like, well, yeah, Andres is kind of right. And Bloom's just like seeing this internalized like look that he's kind of cast upon himself from
Yeah.
what Andreas had like done to him. And so she goes, wow, you really hate him, don't you? And he's like, Andres is a bully and I hate bullies. So, it really
Uh,
adds to the intention there towards this whole situation of like not only helping Bloom,
mhm.
like seeing where Sebastian's coming from, like with what's going on. But like, no wonder Silva lied to Sky. I'm not gonna lie. Like, can you imagine? Oh, your father is Andreas Heraklion. He's the greatest bully Alfie has ever seen.
Oh,
Like,
for
no,
real.
I would like
Absolutely
to.
not.
Like,
I know. Yeah, like that's like you don't want to tell like your adopted son that his deceased father was an absolute jerk. Like that's
right?
not anything
No,
aspirational.
not at
Yeah,
all.
so
So,
it's really sad. I also love the scene because I mean, rewatching it, you can see the overlap of Bloom and Avalon from season 2, the kind of like blind trust that Bloom gives him in season
mhm.
2 of Winx Club, and it's there, and we can and
Yes.
like we know what's coming now, and it's just like girly, like, what are you doing? Trusting this man that
Right?
you just met this season. What is happening?
And that's
Like,
like part of her
oh,
character flaw. Like I hear, the argument, oh, Bloom's a Mary Sue, like throughout Winx Club
mhm.
all the time, but she's
Yeah.
not. Like she's got a lot of flaws as a character, like
Yeah.
as a person. And I think it's good to like show that.
Totally. I agree. Like you said, it's showing the innate humanness in everyone, even though they're fairies, they're still
Right?
people, you know? Like, yeah.
I think it's wild that she really did ignore what Rosalind said and told Sebastian before she told her friends. Like
I just, oof.
it
It gives the blind trust of Bloom in that season 2 arc. Oh my God. It's crazy.
and then adding to it, of course, he's like the nuances here are so mind-boggling because he's like, I equally don't condone underage drinking, even though he was underage drinking when he was her age, but
Right.
also that Bloom shouldn't be, doing work in this pub, ignoring her friends. Like, that's the
Mm-hmm.
reason they're at the pub in the first place is to have fun. And so, like, even with what we know about Sebastian, there's definitely a level of like, hey, go have fun with your friends, but also ulterior motives here. Like,
Oh, no,
yeah.
absolutely. There absolutely
So
is. And I know that obviously this pub probably condones underage drinking because that's probably all of their clientele in this little
mhm.
bitty college town, basically, or boarding school town, whatever. But for me personally, I think that this is another reason why I think this show would have worked so much better if they were proper university age, not just
Yeah.
teenagers at a boarding school. Like, I think that like I think that like it would up the ante for like so many things in all of Fate if they were just older. Like if
Yeah.
they were at the actual age of like their actors and actresses. Like I
hmm
just really think that like and it would have been, I feel like, more enjoyable for me like as like a elder, like, Winx fan to have watched as well,
Right.
because like if they were university age, like like the sex scenes would have been like not as awkward to watch, like, oh, these like they're supposed to be teenagers
Like
and I'm
it's
supposed to think that this is
yeah, a little
hot, like that's like
controversial.
yeah,
No.
it's gross. I'm
Yeah.
sorry, like this is gross. If they're supposed to be in high school, no.
Yeah.
Like I don't know, it's just that. So there's some of that for me. I'm just like, man, there, as much as I absolutely love Fate and love what it did for the franchise and what it is,
hmm
there's still just parts of it I'm like, but it could have been so much better.
Yeah. And
And that's just a small thing.
yeah, like I totally hear you on that, especially because like there's definitely a lot of controversy in like telling these kinds of stories, knowing that these are
Hmm.
like a younger crowd too, even though the
Yeah.
actors aren't, but like it's just
Right.
the
But it's
controversy in
geared
the story itself.
towards,
Yeah.
yeah, for sure. Yeah.
So but
Goofy.
the white horse in the comics though, that's like a thing to talk about because
Oh.
this is something that like I wouldn't have expected, but like the comics definitely feature so many moments like unseen from the cartoon where they portray
Hmm.
like a kind of rambunctious teenage experience, right? Like there's a decent
Yeah.
amount of underage drinking that happens. There's partying, there's substance allegories multiple times, some
Ah!
wild ones like
Oh my God.
oh yeah, 52 if anybody wants to read it, but like that one is a trip, literally. But like,
Oh
but yeah, so like looking back on it though, I guess that's like part of the Winx Club though. It's always been so college coded.
no.
And I think
Yeah.
like the four kids version is more of like an advanced placement high school. That's kind of how I see it.
Hmm.
Like it's like a high school with highly capable classes. I guess that's how like
Yeah.
it refer to it here, advanced placement. Like that, that piece of dialogue from Brandon. Oh, maybe I'm jumping the gun here. I mean, we're still in high school and
Oh
everything. Like,
yeah.
it's
Oh.
just it's more designed to be like that. Whereas like in the original Winx Club, like the rainbow version, it's more like
Mhm.
high school age students being tossed into a college environment. Like that's
Yeah.
kind of
Yeah. Yeah.
like
Yeah.
the different feel. Even just calling it Althea College for Fairies too, like,
But also and I think that this is several of my like European friends have like told me that college for them is like high school for us.
yeah,
And they
yeah.
call it university,
They call
which
it
I think is
university,
so,
yeah.
yeah, which I think is so funny because I was like, oh, okay.
Right?
Like weird flex, but okay. Like I don't, I like, for me, I still think that like you said, like them being thrown into kind of like that atmosphere, like it does like lead for like some really like more adult themes,
Mm-hmm.
you know, than we see in other kids properties. We'll just say
Yeah,
that.
but it's also like I would say like especially in Fate though, I like how it represents that these things do happen for a lot of
Yes,
people growing up. And
that's
a
true.
lot of people don't get to see these kinds of stories, you know, especially like the rambunctious ones. Like I
Yeah.
feel like a lot of people can relate to what happens in this show from like all of what goes on. So it's like I'm glad that it's like represented that it's a thing that happens, but at the same
Hmm.
time, like university, like seeing everything at university would have really it would have been like next level for people. Like, oh, it's yeah,
Yes. It
it's
wasn't, it
like
wouldn't, I feel like it would also make the edginess more applicable and real feeling.
mhm,
Like, at some points, there are some things, especially in season one, where it's like, oh, you're just being edgy for edge's sake, but like it felt a little forced, right? And so I feel like if they had done it differently and for a different like age demographic, like if they were university age, like it would have felt less forced and more like, oh, that's just like what, but you know, like I don't know, but
mhm,
yeah, that's
yeah,
neither here nor there. It doesn't matter anyway. We're not getting a season three, so
right.
I hate it.
Oh,
Oh,
so
so sad. You're listening to the Winx Forever podcast. If you're enjoying this episode of the Winx Forever podcast, be sure to follow the show on your preferred streaming platform so that you're notified when new episodes are dropped. Hello, fairy friends, and happy 20 years of Winx Club. I'm Lola Valentine, and I am happy to say that the biggest Winx Club fan project to date is now available for free at magicalmemorieszine.com. It is 354 pages of pure nostalgic Winx fun, and I hope that you check it out. We had a blast making it. It took us over a year to plan it and gather fan stories from across the world, your stories from across the world of growing up with Winx Club over the past 20 years. And it's just been such an honor to get to create this love letter for the fandom. So thanks for being a Winx fan, and we hope that you enjoy the Magical Memories fanzine. Download it now for free on magicalmemorieszine.com. And now back to the show.
Tara brings Riven a beer, but things turn sour quickly as she tears into him regarding Flora. Bringing up what happened between Dane and Beatrix, she makes it very clear, I kind of know what you're about. Be careful. Then we see Musa and Dane have a little bonding moment over their relationship struggles and what's going on in their lives, as well as lifting each other up through their strengths in combat and what happened over at training. I really love that moment between them because he's telling her not to blame herself. Don't fall into what Tara is trying to make you feel. It's a solid scene.
And I love it too. Part of me like doesn't like that Dane's trying to give like Musa advice about Tara because Dane like does not know my girl Tara. Like step off, get out of here with that. And but also like, oh, the scene with Riven and Tara. I love Riven and Tara so much. Like I love it, and especially if you've read the tie-in novels by Sarah Rees Brennan, like it adds just another layer that like you don't know unless you read those, and it's just so like it's so good because I love Tara like calling Riven out of like when he was talking about like, you know, oh, me and Dane and Beatrix, da, 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 and she's like, oh, you're just having fun, right? You know,
Mm-hmm.
like, ooh, ooh,
Yeah,
freaking get
it's
him.
yeah.
Oh, it's so good.
So that
Oh,
that like I agree, it totally adds to it. And on top of that, Musa did check Dane as well regarding the, she's like, well, my magic's the reason, Sam left in the first
yeah,
place.
that's very true. Oh, yeah.
And then on top of that, just like, Dane telling Musa, like, hey, like when you can get out of your head and just like focus on instinct. Like
he kind of
it'll,
planted that,
yeah,
didn't
like,
he?
hey,
That
but yeah,
idea.
well, it was already building, but like in the sense that, yeah, she probably thought about it there too. Like, like it's kind of hard for a mind fairy to get out of,
Mm-hmm.
their head. And so yeah.
But like when he was like, well, training, like that's why I like training. You just don't think, you just do. Like maybe
Hmm.
like that's also like later on when we see her like have interest in like the specialist training, like
Yeah.
that, like Dane probably like had a part in that. And
Hmm.
but it was so funny because he specifically said, I don't mean like for you, but like just like finding something for you. But she's like, training, got it.
Yeah. I love that though.
Say
Like
less.
the girls write their own destinies here. It's
Yeah.
great. So meanwhile, Rosalind and Bhavani are like unsure about
Yes.
Beatrix's whereabouts, and they discuss the Blood Witch's resurgence. Rosalind's like, "Oh, what about your old Blood Witch contacts?" And Bhavani's
Mhm.
like, "Oh, like they, looked at the banquet list and didn't suspect anybody, but they're like old guards, so they're like separate from this new faction who wouldn't,
Yeah.
like they don't want to fight with fairies. Like this new faction does, though. So it's clear that they
Yay.
both know that not all Blood Witches are evil, and that
Hmm.
it's like they know that not all Blood Witches are the evil propaganda that they try to infiltrate throughout the
Yeah.
realm. So that's just like a really important thing to take note of,
Yeah, especially when like Rosalind was like kill every blood witch ever. And now
right?
she's like, but I know you've got like secret contacts with like blood witches that still exist. Like this lady was like trying to commit genocide on these blood
Hmm.
witches. And it's like,
And she did, yeah. Like this is,
yeah.
yeah. So it's
Do
like she's got a different face going on here, and I'm just like, okay, so
yes.
she's not going to tell Bhavani what her real plans are. So maybe not even Queen Luna knows, or maybe they do know because it sounds like they're kind of in cahoots. But
Yeah.
yeah, so
Hey, buddy.
but the current faction of Blood Witches is summoning scrapers to stir up trouble and announce their return, and they do this by killing Duke Hammerstrom the night before, which we learned in the last episode was like the Solarian form of, like they describe
Yes.
him as the Solarian Jeff Bezos. Like that's kind of what they compare him to. So like when you put it into perspective like that, that's like a really scary thing to imagine. Like
Yes.
that's like high stakes, like, oh my gosh, like they're out here showing the entire world and that, like they're powerful and making moves.
Right. Which like I feel like that like it might have been like hush hush to begin with it just happening because like that is something
Hmm.
that Althea seems to be buzzing about.
Right.
Like it not even like being like it not like he was just at Althea like 3 days ago. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like, oh my God, that's insane.
And the look on
Oh.
Rosalind's face when Bhavani shows her like what we can
Mm.
assume to be photos from like what happened, like she just looks
Mm.
mortified. So
And
like,
like that's hard to do with Rosalind.
yeah,
Hard
like
to
we
do.
never see that expression from her. So oh, just a really solid scene though that like shows that the ante is it's up.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Meanwhile, we see that Andreas sets up kind of like a trap for the Blood Witches to trade Marco for Beatrix. And so it seemingly works when a Blood Witch walks into a wire trap and is met with a knife to the throat by Andreas. But of course, it backfires because this, of course, is also a trap. Like Rosalind said, it backfires, and it's revealed that someone under, Blood Witch magic control, whatever, was sent to meet Andreas, and who then like, oh, this is the scene where I could not watch. So like he like
Oh,
breaks his own neck or like it like twists and like, ugh, I hate it. I hate it so much. I had to
yeah,
be like, oh
it's
no,
like blood
absolutely not.
bending.
But yes, it
Yeah.
is.
Aisha
Oh
described, or Aisha and Bloom talk about that. Their element is blood. Like that is
yeah, blood
how
and
they,
bones and
yeah, and muscle.
ooh.
It's just, oh, it's a,
So and that's what Rosalind used on Farah, right?
well, Rosalind's a mind fairy. So,
No, Rosalind is like Farah. She can control all the elements
oh, yeah, you're right. Yeah.
because both of their eyes glow
Hmm.
white when they can control all the elements.
I
So is
think,
one of those elements
yeah,
blood?
maybe I would assume yes, because because like Dane did tell Musa that like you blocked Rosalind, the strongest mind fairy in I think she said mind fairy or air fairy, one of the two. I don't remember,
Mm-hmm.
or he said that, but like but yeah, she can because we know that from Farah that like you can master other elements. So yeah, yeah, I think she did use
And
a little
Farah
bit of
was
that.
trained
So
by Rosalind.
yeah, oh
That's crazy. And
right.
because how the guy killed himself was how Farah was killed.
Hmm.
Oh my gosh.
But I don't know if she used like maybe it was a combo or something. I don't know because like Farah still used her magic to protect herself, which if she was under like a blood witch kind of control, would she have been able to
But
do
she
that?
wasn't. Oh, wait, yeah. Blood witches can't
But once they
control
take control of you, you
fairies.
can't like use your magic. So
But blood witches can't control fairies, and that's the whole thing. You can only
yeah, that
control
too.
specialists. Unless
Uh,
it's a fairy using blood magic on
mhm.
fairies.
Oh yeah, maybe that's the proxy right there.
I don't know.
That would have
Oh,
been a good one, but like to
yeah.
see that. Oh, but where are we now?
We're
Let's
right
scroll
here.
down. Oh yeah, the trade though. We have to talk about the trade because like Andreas is really selling this trade for Marco. He's calling him the best air fairy to ever come out of
Hmm.
Althea, which is
Hmm.
true, like he really is. And it's
Yeah.
genuinely so sad to
Hot
see though,
Marco.
like how broken Andreas is though, like how he apologizes to Little Storm out loud when he realizes that it's
Oh,
totally over for him. It's just so
yeah.
sad, like seeing that Blood Witch hand like control him.
Eh.
Ugh, yeah, his veins
Gross.
like props to the
Disgusting.
VFX team.
Yes.
But
Ugh.
yeah, it's such a sad thing because surely had he listened to Rosalind, he wouldn't have ended up in this trap. But then there's also that open-ended nuance and mystery of like, well, what's going to happen to Beatrix within the grasp of the Blood Witches? He doesn't know in that at that point, and he
Mhm.
also knows that Rosalind doesn't care about Beatrix at that point. Like she's
Oh, yeah.
also like totally she's disconnected from Beatrix. She's focused on Bloom. So
I wonder why. I'm sorry, continue.
no, no, keep going, keep going.
I wonder why then, like, why was Beatrix important to Rosalind in the first place? Was it because she wanted to see if she was the one that was the dragon flame keeper, or like because there were two like baby fairies in
Hmm.
Asterdale? Like, did she keep her around? And then when she wasn't, she was just like, all right, I don't need you. Like,
Yeah, there's probably more to Beatrix's story that we really didn't get to see. So
so
it's
true.
very sad.
So sad.
But we're right here.
Yeah, you're right
Considering
here.
he sees her, or like, oh wait, let me.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Considering he like loves her like a daughter and he already hates the blood witches,
Hmm.
like he hates them even more now that they've captured Beatrix. He's just got all this inner turmoil going on over the
Hmm.
situation and chooses to go save Beatrix, which is against orders, but that's nothing new for him because he's been attached to Beatrix this whole time. So
Yeah.
after
Oh,
being told not
that's so
to,
true.
like it's just it's almost like there's nothing he really could have done differently here, like from a fatherly perspective.
It's a lose-lose
It's fate.
situation.
So
Yeah.
like,
Yes, it
yeah,
really, really is. And that's really sad. Ugh. Yeah. Speaking of sad, back at the pub, we see Bloom exit into the beer garden where she catches Sky on the phone getting chewed out by Silva and being, outside the barrier before hanging up and, to talk with Bloom, like just getting an absolute earful, like from him of
right.
like, this is so irresponsible, da da da, like, and Sky was like, I'll be back, like, before whatever. Or, no, what did he say? It doesn't matter. But it's just like, you could tell that, like,
Angsty
Sky,
teenager.
no, yes, absolutely. Angsty teenager, like, just taking reluctant, or like he's not taking orders from him because he sees him as a father figure anymore. He's doing it because it's his direct like order, whatever.
Hmm.
But Silva, where were you when they were sneaking out? where
Right.
where were the adults?
Well, I
Anyway.
guess he figured it out at some point. He was just a little bit too
Yeah.
late. So,
Ugh.
um, but yeah, like their whole conversation though between like Sky and Bloom, centers around like Silva's now back and he feels like all this freedom that he experienced briefly is now
Yeah.
gone, and
That's
so
so
it's
true.
like. he's still upset about, Silva's dishonesty, and he blames him for Andreas's distant behavior that's been going on
Mm-hmm.
lately, which Bloom knows is unrelated to Silva, but rather related to, the unrelated Beatrix. Not father, not daughter dynamics, like, are complicated. But, she says that, like, with Rosalind, sometimes things are more complicated than they seem. And Sky's like, that sounds like a very, like, Rosalind thing to say. And then she goes to, like, lighten the mood, and she's like, we need to loosen up. And she, like, chugs a beer, and then they go inside. And I'm just like, oh my
Yeah.
gosh.
And then we get another montage of everyone not being aware of the dangers and the
Mm-hmm.
perils that are happening, but
Right.
drinks are flowing and jealousy's in the air. Dane is just really trying to make Riven jealous while he's completely unbothered and dead set focused on Flora, which is also upsetting Tara, who makes it known with a glare towards Riven. It causes him to kind of back off, and
At least Flora
meanwhile,
hanging, like, oh my gosh, like, where did you
yes.
just go?
I
Like,
know, and like Flora's just like so like confused and like it's so sad. And then like of course Aisha and Gray venture off to like a little romantic garden in a hidden glade, and it's just like I love this scene. I
right.
love
Like
it.
the little, like, locking hands moment is just so cute, like, as they're
Oh,
walking off. But the drama on the
yeah.
dance floor, though, we got to talk about this, because
Ah.
number one, the song "Good Ones" by Charlie XCX is, like, the gays will tell you that is a song like, that we know. So, like, but it's also a really good foreshadowing. Like, I always let the good ones go. Like, oh,
Ooh, that's
ooh.
so
I love how
true.
the show uses music, because it's always on point. There's never been a time where it hasn't really, like, matched in some way. So,
Yeah, so
um,
good.
right. But, like, the drama on the dance floor, the micro expressions and the body language to communicate all these deeper intentions going on is phenomenal.
So good.
Great acting. Like, I'm so plugged in to believing that this is, like, you feel immersed in this scene as it's going on. And
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
The look transfer moment that leaves, like, Flora wondering where Riven went is just like,
Ooh.
oh, like, you really see the shift go on. And, like, ugh, they're, like, mother naturing a bit too much in Flora's garden. Like, she really needs to
Yeah.
focus on her own patch of, like, ground. So yeah,
Yeah.
I oh,
Oh. So it's so bad. And
right.
like, yeah, it's a lot.
The Gray and Aisha date sequence too, like, we really see the beauty of the other world, just, like,
Oh,
amplifying
yes.
those Celtic Winx lore roots. Like, it's in the depths of their
Yes.
conversation too, like, just the way they prefer the chaos of, like, the drunk antics, the
Yeah, that's
academic
true.
athletes, and, like, how it's just, like, way easier for Gray to focus on what he wants when he's not in situations where he's worried about other people. And
Yes.
he's, focusing on Aisha right there in that moment. So, like,
Mm-hmm.
it's so
Yeah.
sweet. Like,
And like the space that Gray brings her to is so beautiful. Like you said,
mm-hmm,
like it's absolutely stunning. And I love how like truly magical like it all looks and feels. And I know a lot of people, Genio Straffi included, was like, oh, Ireland is too rainy and gray for like a Winx world. But like,
right?
look at this scene and tell me it's not magical. Like,
It's
oh
so
my God.
magical. It looks like beyond, like, a green backyard, like in the Pacific
Yes.
Northwest, even. It never looks like this. So,
Oh,
it's so funny that Eugenio said that too, because he knows that he put so much of the Celtic lore in the very
yeah.
foundations of Winx Club. So for him to even say that is just wild.
That one. And for
Like,
me, I feel like that quote came out like months after the backlash of Fate
mm-hmm.
season one. So like I think that it was like a junior being like, yeah, I never liked it anyway.
It's like, yeah, right.
Out of here. You signed off on all of this. Stop it right
Literally all
now.
of this. Like, I could really go in depth on that at some point, but, like, a lot of the Celtic otherworld we do see in this show is pulled from the raw lore, and we see it, like, within the Winx Club, from the design of Althea Castle CG editing, the, like, I think it's like the 1910 depiction of Tir Nanog Palace. Like, that big
Yes.
dome is edited in with CGI into Fate, and it's also
Mm-hmm.
in Althea in Winx Club. Like,
Exactly.
there's
The
so
the
much pulled in
Celtic
here.
runes on the
Mm-hmm.
specialists' ships and
Yep,
stuff like
and everything.
hello.
Like,
Yes.
it's just, I really think of Fate as, like, piercing the veil, like the glittery veil that was cast over the Winx Club universe to really just like show us like this is where it all comes
Yeah.
from. Especially seeing that like promo picture for season 2 where Bloom's like piercing it with fire.
Yes.
So good.
So good.
Love it. But
So
um
good.
where are the beer
You're right
garden?
there.
Oh my gosh.
Mm.
Okay, so now we're out in the beer garden and Riven is smoking a joint alone when Flora approaches, like concerned. Tara attempts to then come through and like play nice, inviting Riven and Flora to go play darts with her and Kat, but Flora senses the tension. She asks Tara, like, what did you say to Riven? And like it
Yeah.
sparks this whole conflict between the two. And it's just well, really all of them. Like it sparks a conflict
Yeah, because
between
Riven
all of them.
leaves.
Yeah, he like
Yeah,
gets up.
because he's like, if I talk to you, it's just like more drama. If I don't
Mm-hmm.
talk to you, it's more drama. It's like, and then Tara comes, he's
Oh,
just like drama, and he leaves. Which,
right.
like, I mean, Riven's just trying to be like not a good guy, like he said. He's trying to avoid conflict and drama, which
Mm-hmm.
like is he wants the opposite of that. Like literally, when he was like macking on Flora in the last episode, he's like, just like not a murder is exactly what I'm into these days. Like
Right.
he's looking for like the opposite of chaos with what Beatrix and Dane was, and like
Yeah. And that's why he
it took.
removed himself from the situation. Like,
Yes,
and so it's,
yeah.
there's that side of it. It's just like, yeah, I love though how Flora, when she shows up here, she's got this like cool demeanor. Like she's like, you good? Like, I love her vibe in the show. This Flora
She
is so, it's like, I don't even know how to explain it. It's like the chillness of like Winx Club Flora from maybe like the Four Kids dub, but without the
yes.
sweetness. It's more just organic and raw and
Yes. And like
like
she's like
hippie vibes.
so
Like I guess is the
hippie
best way to say it. But
vibes. As well, I think that like a Flora character written in 2023, 2024
mhm.
should be,
Yes.
like absolutely. It's like less like I want to say chuggy because like that's like
Mhm.
dumb, but like but it's less like I guess stereotypical like flower
It's more
girl,
raw. Like
and
it's more
it's
like real.
more yes,
Yeah. Rather than trying to
exactly.
make like a characterization, it feels like this could be a real person, and I love that. So
Yes, it's so perfect.
like there's a within Winx, there's definitely an art of it, but like especially in Fate, there's a way to how they write human characters that like feel human in so many different ways. When you
Yeah.
really get down into it, it's pretty good. So,
Yeah.
and it's
Yeah.
great for the YA format in general, but like
Totally.
especially here. So, but I love how she's like, just checking in with like her intuitiveness and like she's just trying to like get to the root of why Riven closed up like a
Mhm.
cold dandelion. Like she's like, what's going on? And Tara comes out and she's just like when Flora's like, oh well, you just couldn't leave it alone. Or no, wait, no, I'm mixing it up.
No, I
So
think
when Tara strolls in, we see Flora and she's like, what did you say to him? Like after Tara comes
mhm.
in and is like trying to like invite Riven with the fake niceness.
And
I
then
need some water real
Tara
quick.
looks at you're good. I will
Mm.
join you. Oh,
It's a lot to like rehash it.
oh yeah.
But yeah, like when Tara comes in and like tries to, play nice, Flora's just like, what did you say to him? And then she literally tells on herself by saying, you just couldn't leave it alone, could you? And we get this glare from Flora, like, oh girl,
So
what?
bad. So
Oh my
bad.
gosh. And so,
Ah!
and we know that Riven didn't do anything. He literally hasn't done
Right.
anything but remove
Literally
himself from the
nothing.
situation.
Yes.
So,
2 times.
right?
Yeah.
So this is followed by Flora giving Tara a reality check that she's being really unkind. She's straight up
Mhm.
saying things like, he's not a good guy, like objectively. And Flora's just not standing for it because, like, even if that were true, they're literally just friends hanging out. What Tara has been doing to try to protect Flora, I understand that it comes from a good place, but it's never okay for the most part to hijack somebody's agency of who they choose to hang out with. In that moment, I understand that she's trying to be protective, but she's doing it in a way that is taking away from this girl's moment. She's trying to have
Yeah.
fun with her friends. And Flora's a free spirit. Putting a leash on her like that is
Not gonna
not the
work.
move.
For sure not. Yeah.
What's
So
interesting, I
go
wanted
ahead.
to add one quick thing to this because what's interesting is when they were writing, believe it or not, when they were writing season 2, this is before season 1 came out. when Tara was called Maya because they didn't have the name Tara in place for the new character, we see
Hmm.
the scene of Maya and Flora. It's in like the casting sides that went out.
Yeah.
Yes. And Flora's talking about how like Maya, who's Tara, is like, you were saying I had questionable friends and like things like that. So that's kind of something that we're seeing buried into this, but it's not
Hmm.
from that was removed from the like featured episode. So it's
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's just really
Yeah.
just a little
Ooh.
tidbit of info there, but
Yeah.
so it's nice how they reincorporated that here instead of like in the intro episode for Flora.
Yeah, for sure. And I feel like in the writing process and also in the process of like cutting the story down to 7 episodes instead of 8, that Flora's character must have gone through a lot because originally, like, wasn't it said to be like Flora like had like a dark secret or like a new fairy with a dark
Yes,
secret, and
that's
it's
what they
like,
were doing at first. Yeah,
what ha happened? What ha happened? I want to know.
we
No.
never got to know what it was, but
Cursed
I'm kind
budget
of glad that
restraints.
yeah, I'm glad that they removed it though, because I feel like we still got a really solid story with her. She's like a
Oh,
breath of fresh air.
no, it's what the story needed for sure. And like she fills a gap that like we didn't have in season 1. They aired on the correct side because if they had made Flora evil, the fandom would have never let it go. Like the
We would
fandom would
have,
have like,
right?
oh my god.
No way. Like it just wouldn't have, no. And I
No, it
hear,
wouldn't have worked.
yeah, like there's a lot of people who say Flora doesn't have a story in this version of Winx Club either. Like they say Flora and Faye doesn't have a
Really?
backstory either. Yeah. Like I've definitely heard some
What?
of the fake criticism videos where people like talk about like the
I don't.
characters. And I'm
Mm,
just like, because I like to listen to like what other people have to say, But
yeah,
like
yeah.
I think the disconnect comes from like, especially rewatching it as closely as we've been doing, we can see all the little like moments of dialogue that if you miss them, like you miss a huge chunk of backstory.
Yeah, like the fact that her parents were researchers, like
Yeah.
that's incredible.
And the
Like, hello.
expeditions and
Mm-hmm.
yeah, talking to Harvey and like,
For sure. Yeah, I'm very glad that Flora was portrayed this way in this season. It's really great.
same.
So,
Oh,
meanwhile, at Althea, Stella gets a text from Beatrix's phone revealing that she is at an abandoned lodge. And so Stella calls a very drunk Bloom who regroups with the others in the pub's bathroom, where Bloom reveals to everybody that she knows via Rosalind that Beatrix was actually kidnapped, and Bloom prompts the girls to regroup in the suite, apologizing profusely that, like, when Stella angrily hangs up on them and then calls. And of course, Sky is, prompt to, prepare and get the specialist gear outside of the pub. And, they're going after them. And Bloom is like, I can't believe she called you, da da da. Like, and he was like, well, this is information I should have like heard like from my girlfriend. And it's just like,
right.
oh, like no one's having a good time this episode.
Oh,
Like, yikes.
everybody's like drunk, and now it's like everybody's got to deal with
Yes.
this. Like,
It's so bad. And like, so they're getting prepared to go, Dane and Riven and Sky. And it was funny because Sky was like, it wasn't a funny idea for me to bring the special gear now, huh, Riven? And, like clearly there was a discussion like beforehand of like, should we actually bring our
yeah,
gear? Like, we're going to a pub.
right.
I love that
Riven
Sky's
was
like
like,
ever vigilant.
yeah. Riven was like, what did he say? He's like, oh, I thought you were nuts to, wanting to bring our
Uh-huh.
gear. And then Sky's, of course, prepared, which is so funny because, like, thinking about that, the phone call with Silva, it's like, this guy's a step ahead. He's got
Yes.
some personality here. Like,
Yes.
so,
Absolutely.
oh,
Oh, Misa also like is like, no, I'm gonna come too. Like, you need me to help like
mm-hmm,
ward off the body control of the blood witches. And there's, all that exchange, and Bloom obviously like Bloom's drunk, everyone's drunk, they're like not thinking straight. But I think Misa's the only one that is, because she's like, let me be helpful, let me be useful. I need this win. And it's
right.
just like, ah, oh my
Oh, it's so
gosh.
good. I love
It's
that.
so good. It then like also dawns on like Bloom. She's like, "Oh, like where's Aisha?"
Yeah,
Like
nobody, like,
no one's seen
right?
her.
He's gone off and like vanished.
Yeah, it
I
does
love
crack
that.
me up in the bathroom scene that like when Bloom's like, "Oh, yeah, Beatrix was kidnapped," and like everyone in the bathroom was like,
Yes.
"Bloom!" Oh my
Right?
god, like it was just so funny. It felt so Winx to me. So
The
cute. I was like,
eruption.
Bloom, what? Bloom, ah! You know, like it was cute.
Right?
It
Oh
was
my
very,
gosh.
it reminded me too of like in like the car scene when they're gonna go break out Silva and they're like, what a boy, you know, like it's so Winx. It's so Winx Club. I love it.
It's exactly what like we know too. Like they've always done it throughout any Wink story. There's always that
Hmm.
level of just eruption. And I think it's so funny that it
Yes.
happened in the girls' bathroom of all places because
Yes.
that's like
It's so
literally like next to the lunch table. That's like the best place for, gossip and congregation,
yes.
everybody skipping
Yes.
class back to like it's like, yeah, but it's just so funny that like that happened too because it's such a big rule to break. Like in the comics,
Hmm.
one of the rules, the second rule of forming the Winx Club that Stella says is that we must promise like never hide anything from each other. Like that's
Hmm.
literally the rule everybody agreed to. So like I really think this is exactly how the like old Winx Club would have reacted to
Yes.
this. Like
Yes.
straight up like, oh my gosh, like, because they tell each other everything. Like they've told each
Hmm.
other things that they wouldn't even tell their own boyfriends. Like,
Yeah.
I'm glad that Bloom apologized in this moment, but like still, like it's good that she apologized and then decided to move towards working, like she apologized and then moved towards finding a solution, like
Yeah.
rather than,
Yeah.
just not doing anything. But
Right. Which is kind of what she wanted to do. She did not want to do anything because she
mhm,
told them, like, guys, it could be a trap. Like
yeah,
she knew. She
she's
knew.
doing all this drunk too, all this math, like
Yes, exactly.
trying to convince everybody, you guys were drunk, like listen up, like I love that. It's so
Mhm.
nice.
Join in on the conversation when you follow Winx Forever Podcast on social media.
So like going back to Musa, like talking about wanting to go on the mission, like with kind of as a like in the retrospect of rewatching this, like we really can see like the pacing and the writing through like a new light here. I thought it
Mm-hmm.
was jarring at first, like on my first watch through this, but this
Oh,
second rewatch, like I was like, oh, now I finally get it like a little bit more. Like Musa's
yeah.
journey is much smoother for like just me as a viewer. And I think that's like kind of the magic of Winx Club though. Like how many times have we rewatched Winx Club? Like, you know what I mean? Like, Winx
Oh,
fans are
yeah.
always going back and like rewatching these shows, and they really thought of that and put that into the design of this series. They know that
Mm-hmm.
people like at some point are going to rewatch this,
Mm-hmm.
and like we can really see it in points like with Gray and Sebastian pointing out Gray at the pub. Like, it's something that I think is adding to the longevity of this series, even if it does mean that it's a
Yeah.
little bit more complicated and
Mm-hmm.
like it can be hard to follow at times. But I'm
I
glad
do
they did it.
Yeah, I also do think that like as far as like story and pacing goes for season two, it's much better than it was in season one. Like
Mm-hmm.
season one with all the jumps and like from like time jumps like in season one, like it could be like the next day or it could be like 3 weeks later, like we
Yeah,
didn't ever know where we were in the timeline for
six
season one.
episodes is just like,
Yeah.
yeah,
Oh,
it's like,
it's just
was this a
too
whole
much.
year?
Right. Yeah. And like it was just hard to keep up. I think in season two, like they really helped bring the audience along in the timeline of like where we were, which was
Mm-hmm.
nice. Especially like, yeah, like understanding like, oh, this is, 3 days after the banquet and like this is what's happening, like I feel like they learned a lot from season one and like fixed things like that in
Yeah,
season two, which is really, really
it's
nice.
just, and it's not so like dark and scary all the time in this season too. I will say it's a
Yeah.
huge shift, which is refreshing in ways. I think there's more fun, playful moments here, which I
Yes.
guess kind of works if you think about season one as like the prequel to the girls forming like, coming together as the Winx Suite. That's kind of how I think of it. Like the
Yeah.
prequel, especially with the way it ends of them all showing up to
Hmm.
Althea together.
Yeah. And I also I feel so bad for the people that gave up on Fate after season
Same,
one because season two
right?
is like it
Such
just
a
gets so
treat.
good.
But leading into the next scene, Aisha and Gray relax on the rocks of the glade, enjoying a rare moment of bliss before the tension builds into a romantic moment.
Ooh.
I love this scene. Like the way they're talking about
Yeah.
like family expectations and like achieving personal goals. And Aisha's like playful splash, like as the water fairy she
Yes.
is. I'm just like, oh my gosh.
Which is so funny. I thought like she would like use like I almost said water bending, her water magic to like, like splash him, but like she literally like with her hand like
Hmm.
like so
Right?
cute. I love it.
I love that. Like it feels like a very cinematic, like artistic scene here, like especially with how she
Mhm.
like leads kind of into everything, like when she wipes the
Yes.
bioluminescent like
Oh my
splotch off his
God.
face. I just love it. I love everything about this. And then
When she did that and it like smeared, I was like, oh, that's a dead bug on his face. Okay.
the phytoplankton, like,
It's like,
like
oh.
the sparkling magical water current of bioluminescence that swirls around them like a protective embrace is just, it's so good when you really listen to the lyrics of the songs and what they foreshadow and what they kind of say. The lyrics are, let me off, let me in, let others battle, we don't need to battle and we both shall win, saying like, because what we know about Gray is just so different, like, as rewatchers. But it's such a deep moment where I'm just like,
Yeah.
oh, so cleverly crafted. And I hope people can find appreciation for Fate in that sense, especially hearing this and us talking about
Hmm.
it. They really do put a lot into this.
And some people's argument is like, well, if you have to look that deep, then it's like not that good. It's like, that's not, I don't think that that's a fair argument here.
But it's
Yeah,
not,
right.
yeah.
Yeah. But I don't think that like, yeah,
The
it's,
message of the Winx Club is to open your minds and open your hearts and open your eyes to the magic around you. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Like,
yeah.
and so I think that's like, yeah, it's
Agree.
better to find reasons to love things and enjoy life than I think to put everything in like a hyper negative, like
Hmm.
vision kind of lens. And I think, that's,
Absolutely.
part of the human experience, especially like growing up in like the American academic system. Like people are
Hmm.
typically praised for when their criticism criticizes the not so good parts of things rather than
Hmm.
amplifying the positives.
True.
Yeah.
Ugh, that's so
But
true. Wow.
opening up to letting these stories change us though is like, it's it I don't know how to say it other than like I would rather enjoy something than not enjoy it. So I'm gonna
Yeah.
find beauty in everything.
Also, I would rather just let people enjoy what they enjoy. And if you don't
Yeah,
like it, like that's okay, but still don't rob someone else of that joy.
exactly. It's not cool to
Ugh.
like yuck somebody else's yum for the most part. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. I
it's
agree.
never, yeah. Oh, we have to talk about the Andros reference here. I
Oh my
totally forgot
God.
about it.
Yes.
Yes, so
Yes.
there's a moment where Aisha talks about how her family runs a bunch of like, what is
Water
it?
plants,
Like
water
solar
power
energy
plants.
water.
Yeah.
And she's like talking about how they like have it all along the coast of Andros and like they didn't want her to come to Althea and like be an academic like she is, but she did it
They wanted
anyways.
her to go somewhere local and then like come back and run which like I think is so funny
Yeah.
because like you have to be like a civil engineer to like run a power plant like that. Like you got to be
Hmm.
a smart person. Like so maybe there's like one specific school they had in mind, not like Althea, like this prestigious academy that like, whatever, like I don't know, but
Right.
I do like that they tied that in that even though Solaria is like a single like monarch like situation, that even though like well, is Andros, would that be a different country?
Heraklion or
Heraklion,
Andros. Yeah,
Cleon.
they're different areas of the other world. Like I know within like
Oh,
the other
that's
world
right.
mythology, that's how it's typically portrayed. It's like typically a parallel reality to ours. So it's like sometimes like it's all within the same planet for the most part.
Right.
But yeah, so like it is technically like its
Governed body.
own governed body. Yeah, it's just
Yeah,
not
yeah,
the
yeah.
capital body of the realm.
Okay, gotcha. So like that being said, even though Aisha is not royalty from
Hmm.
her part of the other world.
At least
She
we
is
don't know
from a
it yet.
prominent
Like, you know,
she's
we
from a
never
prominent
know.
family, that is like, yeah, it's exhausting, but it's nice that like she is like a highborn of something.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
also peeling back like
I keep saying highborn. I am in the middle of Game of Thrones, and so
oh
it's very
gotcha. I was just talking about
anyway.
that yesterday. But when they peel back, like peeling back the layer of Andros in Winx Club, if you were to peel back that, glittery veil and look at it, I love how they
Mhm.
incorporated the hydro energy facility as
Yes.
like a more realistic aspect. And we do see one of those in season 5 of Winx Club when the girls turn that
Yeah.
oil rig into like the hydro energy like green rig. So it's almost
Yeah.
like they took that and like kind of moved it in here.
That is so funny, Dane. I forget all the time that those seasons even exist.
I know because it's like
Because
one of
they're
those things I unfortunately remember. So
Yikes. That is
uh,
so funny.
so
Oh
oh
my
my
God. But
gosh.
that's so true though. Yeah, like even like the parts of Winx Club that like we are so quick to forget about, like they incorporate because they
Hmm.
were good at their jobs. Oh
They
my
went through
God.
so much. Like I think they really did revisit everything though. They had to have because we see stuff from season 8 that is even in here at the very end. But like, they really did go through everything. I know for a fact they did because even in season 1, when we see Stella taking a photo with the students, like
Yeah.
that's a season
That's
five
season 4.
moment. That's
That's a
season
season
four
4 and
too.
5.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
So
I love it.
okay, I have to talk about this because this was such a good moment. Like transitioning to the next shot, we see like a night shot of the sky, and there's a first quarter moon, which like that means like the right half is illuminated. And we then see Skyriven and Musa pull up to the lodge before going inside. We have to talk about this shot because part of like Fate's symbolism in its storytelling is taking things that like people can typically like like it incorporates a lot of just symbolism in general. And with the first quarter moon, a lot of people have different like interpretations of like what this means, but combining them into what's going on here, I kind of like did a little bit of research and it seems to represent the themes of commitment, action, big decision, and righting wrongs, especially with what happens here in this next shot at the lodge. Like it's all there. Like I it just when I saw it and I was like, what face of the moon is this? And so like I looked it up and tracked it down and then I read this and I was like, no way. Like,
That is some super sleuthing, Dane.
right?
I love that so much.
I got super inspired to do that too because like this is like a little bit of a side trail, but like I watched the video on the breakdown of Bloom's transformation in season 1. And when he talks about how like it's supposed to represent like with the way the fire wraps around her arm and like just around her as a character, it's supposed to like represent that she now controls it. I'm just like, they put so much thought into like every little
Mhm.
thing that they're doing here. Even from the girls in the background, like Stella and Aisha creating that like mirage.
Yeah.
Like, there's so much thought put into this. So,
Oh,
but yeah, I just wanted to add that in there.
I love that.
I saw the moon and I was like, oh, have to see what it's about. And I'm glad that
That
I did. So,
Yes, I am too. That is such a good find and catch because like it does just go to show like, and I hope that our listeners like see it too, like the intentionality that the writers went, lengths to provide in the
mhm.
series is just so cool. And honestly like really inspiring as a creative like myself. Like that like I hope to pour that much like detail and, like
Intention into
care,
something,
yeah,
right? Like
intention,
just
yeah, into what you create. Like I think that it's important as a creator, and so like I
mhm.
love that.
Same.
So back in the Wink suite, Bloom is pacing back and forth while she's, expressing to Stella, Tara, and Flora that, like they should go after Sky and their friends because, they're walking right into a trap when Stella tells Bloom a very hard truth about herself, which then Bloom points out how, like, or I could just sit here like a princess and dictate, orders to people and implying that she's not willing to attempt to help Beatrix. And it's so sad because you can see it on Stella's face, like just like this is the moment I have to like tell them like why I have been the way that I've been the past like couple of weeks. Like she reveals the device that her mother had Rosalind place on her, the Shabstone, and it's just like, oh, it
Oh,
is
it's so sad.
gut wrenching. It is so sad because Stella's like, okay, yeah, you want to know why I'm the way that I am? This is why. Like I have this as a mother. Like this is what she does to me, and like it's sad because when Tara's like, why didn't you tell us? And Stella's like, because of the looks you're literally giving me right now, and she leaves. And I
She can't
just
handle it. Like, yeah, because oh, it's
and truly the looks they give her, like the look on Bloom's face, like knowing that she like messed up, like, oh shit,
mm-hmm.
like like it's like Stella isn't just a stuck up princess, like she is a prisoner,
Yeah. And
and
she,
mm,
hasn't been able to talk about this. And like the fact that she didn't tell anybody, I know like some people did criticize, like, oh, well, why didn't she tell her friends? We have to think about like what Stella as a character in this universe, what she's been like conditioned to kind of like, I don't know how to say it, like how she's been raised. I guess that's the best way to say it. Like,
yeah, yeah,
we have to think about how Stella was raised within this universe. And considering the events of season one, where, her mom basically like didn't want her being seen as weak. So instead of,
yeah.
telling everybody that like she accidentally lost control and blinded Ricky, she did it on
Oh,
purpose.
yeah. We
Yeah.
never addressed that.
Yeah. So that is actually, I mean, we talked about that, but that's like
Yeah.
I don't know if the viewers, well, we haven't talked about it on here, but like
Yeah.
that's adapted from the Potionology lab explosion.
Mm-hmm.
And there's actually a scene that's in the comics that's pulled from Stella and Brandon bringing it up at the dance, which is what we see when it's brought up at the dance
Mm-hmm.
with Stella and Sky.
That's
And
so
so
true.
I'm just like, oh my gosh, and it's an exclusive moment to the comics too, in the
Yeah.
series. So it's
But
definitely something they brought in. But yeah, it really goes to show that spider-looking gem made Stella recluse, kind of like a spider after she was starting to open up to the girls, and so it's just so symbolic to that. And
mm,
I'm not surprised that she struggled to tell them because her mom never gave her the space to really talk about those emotions. And with that kind
yeah.
of symbolizing her reclusing, it's just very foreign to her as royalty to be in such a healthy environment, or, well, a
Hmm.
healthier environment.
Yeah. And isn't it later in the season when she kind of like has to lie to her mom and reject her friends that she gets the shops taken out?
Mm-hmm.
Like that's another thing too of like her like
Super.
having to like fall back into place of like, yeah, like no one understands us because we're royal. Like I don't really have friends here. That too is just like a testament of how effed up Stella's upbringing was.
Mm-hmm.
Gosh,
Yeah.
not like you can trust anybody just because you're a royal.
Right.
Ah, that's terrible.
And
Mm,
we'll talk about it in that episode when it happens, but
yeah.
like, yeah, good spot though, because off the record, I'm gonna go off the record for a second.
Yeah.
Like her, with the way she stands up to Queen Luna in that moment, as it comes out, it's like she's the opposite of reclusing. The spider tendrils are gone. She's full force, like, well, what if I wasn't the princess? I had a friend that just watched Fate recently, and they told me, like, when they saw that shot, the micro expressions on Stella's face were just like, she was acting her
Hannah.
ass off. Like,
Hannah.
Hannah,
Yes, she got her
oh,
paycheck that day. Yes.
right? I was just like, it's such a good
Oh,
scene. But yeah, so
yeah,
I can't
Hannah's
wait
such
to
a
get
good
back into
actor.
that on here though, because
I
like
know. I
that
know.
spider thing, like, oh,
Ooh,
it's so good.
disgusting. Yeah. Oh, I'm
So
so excited. You're listening to the Winx Forever podcast.
when Sky Musa and Riven then like track Beatrix down, they find Andreas, but soon realize that they've stumbled right into a trap, as it's like not the
Mhm.
normal Andreas that they've come across. Silva helps the gang like right when they need him, actually. Like he comes in like right when I think he's about to kill Riven. And
Yeah.
then like Silva steps in, and it leads Dane to take Beatrix back to Althea. But then before he goes back, Riven's like, where's Musa? And so then, he goes back inside. Riven does. So Silva then helps the gang, leading Dane to take Beatrix back to Althea. And then Riven goes to like track down Musa, who's still inside the lodge.
Mm-hmm.
Bloom, Tara, and Flora realize that it must be someone close to them that has set up this trap. And she figures that, there could really only be one answer to this. The one person who hates Andreas and
Mm-hmm.
Rosalind more than anyone. So it's none other than Sebastian.
Oh, yeah. There's so much that happens in this scene. As soon as they realize it's a trap, because Musa points out if she's passed out, how does she text Stella?
Mm-hmm.
And then everything goes really fast from there, and it's just like, oh my god.
It's so good. Like the fight sequence, I feel like it could have been longer. I feel like they really spliced out a lot of the footage because I read that it was supposed to be like 10 to 15 minutes of fighting.
Oh wow.
They
Wow.
filmed a lot that was
Yeah.
not included in the sequence, but I really think Musa's experience takes the cake in this moment. Getting attacked by the scraper, and then we see her magic faltering. Just the way, as the viewer, we really hear what she hears and feels what she feels as her magic is on and then
Yes.
off and then wavering around and coming back on, and she's really going through it like, oh my gosh, I just experienced peace and now I'm back in this and I can't deal with it. So that journey into it combined with what is happening with her, like, Alicia, I'm not gonna lie, really good moment here. I was plugged in. I got chills. You could just see it on her face. And that's a hard thing to do, especially portraying this in an environment where it's all pretend.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
everybody who worked on this moment right here really sold it because it was intense. So
it was intense, and like, yeah, I agree with you. Like Alicia like acted her ass off. It was so good. It was so good. Like she got her paycheck, like she worked for it. Like damn. Like, and I know the fandom is so divided over Alicia like playing Musa.
mm-hmm.
Check that out the door, because like this scene, like oof.
Yeah,
Oof, it was
like
so
she
good.
really did what she was, paid to show up and do here, and she
Yeah.
delivered more than what they were, giving her. Like, of course, we
Yeah.
figured out at this point that, yeah. So I love how Bloom and Tara figure out it's Sebastian, from what Musa said on the phone, just like doing that whole kind of unpacking back and forth in the suite adds to like the mystery solving element of Winx. And like the fact that they know it's like a blood witch who's holding a grudge and it's just like, it has to be him. Like, solid. It fits with the plot. It's smooth and it works. And I love that. And it also shows that, Sebastian kind of screwed up telling Bloom that, Andreas bullied him, like, because he kind of let the cat out of the bag.
Yeah, like in a way, I wonder if that was intentional on Sebastian's part or if it was a
Mm-hmm.
misstep, because Bloom was like trusting him a lot, but also I feel like it might have let Sebastian's defenses down a little too, you
Mm-hmm.
know?
Maybe
So,
he wanted it to happen. I don't know.
yeah,
Like,
weird.
kind of
Yeah.
like how Valtor kind of wanted to meet Bloom at some point, like as himself.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
yeah.
Cause we don't know yet. Cause
Mm-hmm.
I've been comparing stuff to like every villain in Winx Club so far.
Oh yeah.
Because even like I wonder too if like Sebastian was not hoping to drain Bloom, but to change her to like Dark Bloom, like to change her
Mm-hmm.
to his side, because she might have been more powerful to him as herself and not as, a drained fairy where he just steals the dragonfire from her.
Yeah.
Ooh,
Oh, it makes me
Corsi.
wonder. Like, I do wonder if we would have seen Sebastian's, I have to say this off the record, but like Sebastian's dad in season 3, like, you know what I mean? Like, I feel like that's something that it would have happened. Like, if
Yeah.
Shadow wasn't his dad, then like maybe there's another Valtor, like a senior Valtor above, Sebastian, or maybe that's what Sebastian comes back as.
Yeah.
That would be a
Man.
wild reveal.
I
Like,
am so nervous for the Fate comics. I'm not gonna
same.
lie. I am so incredibly nervous.
I really hope that the TV writer like has gone into it like this because like
Yeah.
if not, I don't know. But they have all the comics in-house there, so maybe they can at least pull stuff from those.
Maybe.
I don't know. The cinematic back and forth though, like between Bloom venturing to, Sebastian's shop and
Mm-hmm.
like The fight that's going on over at the lodge is just like, it's so good. And then finally, like when she stumbles into the back room of Sebastian's shop, he's just like, oh, hi there. Like,
Oh,
and then
hi
we
there.
finally see him for who he is. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this guy is like truly diabolical. Like he's
Ian Hardwick, like in this, so
ate.
good.
He
So
ate. Like
good.
he's incredible. Like I think him and especially Ken Dugan, like I've just
Oh my God, Ken is
oh
so
my
good in
gosh.
this.
Like I just everybody in the show for the most part is great unless I feel like they're tossed like a pretty trash line. But that's more season one. It's not so much season two.
Yeah, season one, there's some pretty, yeah. There was that
But
one line last episode of Bloom where it was like way too long. I was like, ooh, the cadence of that was like not it, but like
mhm.
it probably wasn't her fault. Like it was just probably
Yeah,
bad direction. I don't
yeah.
know.
Some of the like when he
Abby
says
can do
like
no wrong.
yeah, right.
Duh.
Uh, but
Anyway.
when Bloom confronts Sebastian, like he doesn't even deny it. Despite Bloom's belief that blood magic won't work against her, Sebastian reveals that he's been making some alterations to that little problem. Like he's been coming up with a little solution. I guess that's the best way to say it. But he isn't taken aback by Bloom's magic. Instead, it is Bloom who is caught off guard
Mhm.
when Sebastian reveals he knows about her parents. To which he creates a wall of water during that moment of
Yes.
distraction
Yes.
just for him to disappear to the back and vanish. And Aisha arrives into the shop. But
Doesn't Aisha make that wall of water?
no, Sebastian does. He breaks the pipe. Yeah.
I thought that Aisha did that because what wasn't her eyes glowing when she was
She comes
four?
in and like disperses it. Yeah. And then I think
Oh.
Bloom like heats it up. I don't remember if she heats it up, but
Yeah,
I
and
do know.
it like
Mhm.
dissolves. It like turns into vapor and like
Yeah.
yeah, that does happen. Because I was like, oh no, all of his first world things.
Right.
They're all ruined.
All these electronics.
Oh
Oh my
no.
gosh. Good use of Marco's power though, and Beatrix's, like just
Yeah,
lighting everything up
yeah.
like that. So good.
And I absolutely love this scene. Well, for one, of course, it's like totally Winx Club, like with her
100%.
confronting Valtor, like Valtor revealing that he knows her parents and her history. Like,
In
oh
the
my God,
library.
yes, it's
Yeah.
perfect. It's so perfect. And like when she like flames on and like the color contrast in the shop of
Hmm.
like the blues and then all of the like her side of the room is red and like
Yes, the fire versus water. Like,
oh, I
oh,
love it. It's so pretty and like
yes.
it's so great. Like this whole scene is fantastic. They did a fantastic job, especially like bringing Bloom into this conflict of like wanting to destroy Sebastian, yet the curiosity of her past like preventing her from doing so. Like she could like flame on and roast him like entirely. Like at any point she could do that. But
Hmm.
like same can be said for season 3 Bloom and Winx Club. Like at any point she could destroy Valtor. Like especially when she got her enchantix. But like
She's keeping her composure though in that moment because she knows there's a
yeah.
lot at stake, and
Yeah.
especially when he says that, of course, that throws everything off. But like,
Yeah.
it's super important though that like, you know, she didn't though. I'm glad that she took control of the flame without totally just like lighting everything up in that moment.
Yeah. She might not be as self-composed later on in the season,
Yeah,
but we'll
yes. It's
get
not her
there.
fault though. Like,
Oh yeah, that's true.
and that's something that people don't realize. I've noticed that like in some of the reviews, they're like, well,
Yeah.
why I don't understand.
Why would
Yeah, we'll
Bloom
get
kill
there.
somebody?
But I love how she wasn't afraid of the
Hmm.
blood witch magic, like because she told him like, oh, blood witch magic doesn't work on fairies, and
Hmm.
and then she even says like, I figured the scrapers wouldn't be here. Like she's
Hmm.
just laying it down
She's
that like,
yeah.
yeah, like I'm smarter than you, Sebastian. And he goes, oh, don't worry, they're back on their way. And what do you think I've been doing with fairy magic? And then that's when he's like showcasing all the powers, and it's just, oh my gosh,
Mm.
like so good.
So so good.
It's really reminiscent of just him doing that with the powers too. It's a very reminiscent thing of what we saw with fake Avalon in the, yeah, in the dark tower slash mysterious stone.
Yes.
Like when he's out in the forest and he's like wielding all the elements like in his hand, right?
Oh my God, you're so right.
I know, it's just it's a huge moment where you're just like, I cannot believe that they adapted that into this.
That
So,
is so cool.
and it's
Ugh.
not the only thing. There's another moment too,
Mhm.
because it's blended with a plot from issue 55 of Winx magazine called Temptations. And there's this whole plot line where I'm going to say it. Well, I don't know if I should say it here, but essentially Riven saves. Well, I will say it because
Yeah.
Riven goes into lodge, yeah, where Riven saves Musa from a like trafficking ring of men who were
Oh my
kidnapping
God.
fairies and witches for their
Oh,
magic.
no.
Yes. I mean, no, like, yeah, it's horrible, but like, yeah,
Yeah,
like,
that happened.
yeah,
Why are the Winx comics so unhinged?
I
Hello?
don't know. They were dark, like, and that's not even the darkest part of this comic. There's more in there, but like, it's,
I am
yeah.
gagged. Oh my God.
So they, like, the fact that they blended all of this, though, it really paints that bigger picture of what this show
Mhm.
is. It just goes on to, say what we've been saying this whole podcast. Like,
Oh,
this is it really is peeling back that veil over the Winx Club and just saying like, hey, this is what we've been saying the whole time. We're amplifying it. Like, here it is. Like,
I can't. Oh
oh,
my God. That's wild.
right.
Oh, I'm crying.
When I saw that, I was like, I got chills when I even found out that comic existed. I was like, wait a minute, no way. Like,
It's
that's
crazy.
in fate. That's literally in fate. Like, I
That's
see it.
literally in fate. Yeah.
So,
Wow.
but
Good
yeah.
job, Dane. This is crazy. That's the thing. Like, I knew you were the right person to do this deep dive with. Oh my God.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
I'm so
I
glad
love
that we've chosen to do this too, because we've really figured out that this show was meant for a rewatch and we're the ones doing it.
I
It's
love
just so
it.
exciting. I'm so glad that we are doing this because it really I think people are going to be really excited to see what we have to say.
Yeah.
So
And I think too, like, for all the mixed reviews and everything that Fate got, like, I feel like it is due its flowers
just the
for,
like yeah.
yeah,
We're
like,
giving it the proper criticism it kind of needs, and it's
yeah.
been needing. So
Yeah. And I agree, like, especially from people that love both properties,
mhm.
and can see the flaws in both properties.
Yeah,
I
when
think
I think
that is equally
we can
important.
both do that pretty well.
We can
So
do that. We don't have a
yeah,
problem with it
like
either.
which
Yeah.
goes into a next point that I actually have in here about
Mm,
like this scene. There's one thing that bothers me about this scene, but it's not like the end all be all, but it did take me out of the experience a little bit
mm,
when we see like the activation of Bloom's wings, it didn't quite reach the cinematic level that I was anticipating based on
mhm.
those like promo images that we saw before the show came out of like the side
Yeah.
views. I was like, oh, this scene is going to be like I was so excited when I saw this. I'm like, I cannot wait to see what this looks like when she lights up her wings. But
Yes.
when she does it, something that bothered me about the shot is it's a very front, like full body shot from Sebastian's point of view,
Mhm.
but it's not really Sebastian's point of view. It's just across the shop because we can see him in the frame.
Yeah.
And I didn't like how they faded the background with like a transition. It just felt kind of cheap and rushed. And like I get it,
Yeah.
COVID-19 and they were working remotely on computers that were, stored in other facilities. So I don't know like
Mhm.
what really happened there, but it I felt like they could have done something cooler, like maybe have the camera shot like swirl around Bloom as her wings start to light
Mhm.
up and like
Oh my
yeah,
God.
and then pause when it gets to
Yes.
like the side, like, and then just like have her speak to Sebastian. That would have been so much more epic, especially with like the
Yeah.
music. I wonder if there was, it's almost like they filmed an alternate take and then put this one there. Like, that's how it
Yeah.
feels to me.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, and to your point, it does feel rushed. It feels like, oh, just get to the point, like we're running out of tape or like we're running out of time,
right.
Like
But on
yeah.
top of that, I will say then when it starts switching to the side shots, though, it looks completely different. It's like a different camera. Like,
Yeah.
it's not the same lens at all. It's like night and day difference of
Oh.
the cinema. And that's what bothered me about this scene. And I think that's kind of an issue that I see a little bit more in season two than season one, because season one's camera work was pretty consistent for the most part.
Mm-hmm.
But even in the, I'm going to go back a little bit here. even during the fight sequence, there was a high frame rate moment with,
Mhm.
yeah, it just took me out. Like, I'm just like, oh,
Yeah.
it's not giving cinema, it's giving college project camera. Sorry,
Yes.
sorry to
No,
everybody who
but
worked on this, but like,
but 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 no, I think that that is fair criticism because if
it's just this
you
shot. Like, really just
right,
this
yeah,
shot.
because if you noticed
But
it and it took you out and like, granted we're taking definitely a much like a bigger microscope to this rewatch.
yeah,
Even so, if that felt off or odd to anybody just watching it for the first time,
and
like
like, believe me, I
that's a
saw it
good
too.
explanation. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. Like that's probably why it felt off. And I don't think that I could have pinpointed that myself, because
Mhm.
like now that we're just talking about it, absolutely, like
It totally does
I
feel a little off,
it
when you look at
does.
it
It
like
feels
that.
off when you look at it like that, and like it does feel like, oh yeah, like that there was no like dramatic lead up. There was no like fate transformation, like there was
Hmm.
just like flame on
Yeah,
and she had wings, and it's like, oh,
it's the pause too. It's just like
oh,
it needed more
yeah,
movement in the scene. It was too static for the moment. Like in
absolutely.
season one, we see the cinematic rise up from behind. So like they could have,
Hmm.
done the swirl and then it just,
Right.
oh yeah.
Yeah.
But
Oh, yeah.
back at Althea College, Flora accuses Tara of being jealous of her when she succeeds. With that opinion out in the open, both of them question why they're even friends. This was riveting.
Oh,
Like, we saw this
yeah,
coming from a mile
yeah.
away. Like, Tara's constant second guessing of Flora's actions. Like,
Which,
that is
like,
obviously going to,
to Tara's defense, she did almost kill a guy. So, like,
yes.
it's
So
valid in
there's
that
a level
point.
there. But
There's, yeah.
also, the other side of it, too, is like, but it's like deeper than that because it also goes into the fact that, had Tara just sent off the formula to Harvey in the first place, like Flora asked, like,
That's
then it wouldn't
true.
have
That's
even,
true.
yeah.
That's true. Yeah,
So,
yeah.
but what happens, it's part of the big themes. Tara's behavior in general here, though, I really think it stems from her upbringing, where her family relied on her and she relied on
Mm-hmm.
them at Althea, outside of Althea. She grew
Yeah.
up around Althea with them. And so with them not being around and kind of seeing how Flora comes into the picture as like a free spirit and, can
Mm-hmm.
exist on her own, she is jealous of that. Not jealous like in a way where she hates Flora, but like in a way where she
Yeah.
wishes Flora needed her more, kind of like what she's used to. You know what I mean?
Yes,
And
especially
that's,
with her family gone now.
yeah. So
Yeah.
I love that the jealousy isn't like some one-dimensional, like, I'm mad at you because I'm like
Because you,
self-absorbed about Spotlight. Like,
yeah.
it's nothing like that. It's like completely different. It's just it's deeper in the soil.
Is. It is. And I have there's a lot of like I personally have a lot of issues with the character of Tara, being that like I don't know, like I felt like in season 1 it was a cop out that like of course like that they made like her kind of like self-conscious of like her weight, like and that being
Hmm.
like a big
Yeah.
trigger for her, and like Ribbon saying, like that offhanded not off,
Yeah.
very very pointed, comment about her weight in season 1,
Hmm.
and them making that like a very like pivotal character flaw in her of like, it just feels shallow. Like I
Yeah.
get introducing more like body inclusivity in the Winx world. We need that. But like seeing Tara, and I said this in my season 1 deep dive of like seeing Tara being reduced to just like her weight was hard in
Something
season
more than
1.
that. And
Exactly.
that's what we got here. So
Yeah, we needed more than
yeah.
that. But then on the flip side of it too, and this is another issue I have with Tara, it's almost like they didn't know what they were doing like with Tara, I feel like, because then they're like, "Oh, let's make her gay." More inclusivity. But like why do we have to put it all on one fairy? Why do we have to put all of that on one? Like it was hard to see that too, because it's like, oh, she doesn't like, she of course like she can't like boys don't like her because she's fat in season 1. It's like, oh no, boys don't like her because she's gay, like, but like that's just, I don't know, it all a little bit feels like a messy way to handle
Mhm.
those issues.
I
But
I think like I gotta be honest, I really did get gay vibes from Tara in season one. Like I didn't say anything at the time. Well, that's not true. I
was
did
it
tell
just
her
because she was played by Elliot?
not because she was played by Elliot. Well, I guess thinking about it like that too. Now I
Hmm.
just yeah, because Elliot is gay in real life.
Yeah,
So like
yeah.
yeah, but I think it was because of like for example, that conversation on the bench really stuck out to me because that's something like I've experienced that before, like growing up
Hmm.
with who I was as a person. Like
Yeah.
when Riven's like, oh, like, is he even gay? We see Tara just kind of like recluse a little bit. Like she gets in her own head if you really look at the shot. And then we
Hmm.
also saw Kat talking to Tara right before then. Like it's almost like it was planted in that moment,
Hmm.
but like not fully taken advantage of. But it's in retrospect too, especially like looking back on
Yeah.
it, it's very clear that they had seeds ready to explore this
Yeah,
later on.
totally. I just
So
wish that it wasn't stuffed all into one brand new character. Like, why couldn't we have
mhm.
explored that in like different ways and not like just pushed all of this like new like inclusivity onto one character? It just feels like a lot for one
Yeah.
character's like dimension. I don't know,
And
but
they kind of did that
yeah.
with Dane too in season one because he was really the
Hmm.
only like rep of like queer rep we got until season two
Yeah.
rolled around and we
Which it was like in my opinion, that too was a poor representation of
mm-hmm.
like the queer community in season one.
Because
And so
he was not the
it,
nicest.
he
So
was not, and it wasn't
but
like, yeah, it wasn't what we deserved as a fandom. But like, I
that's
think,
part of this
yeah,
show though. Is like it's exploring these people who aren't but they're not perfect people. We're
yeah,
not always
yeah.
gonna like them. Like, like that's part of it too. And I think even growing up, like that's a big thing for a lot of queer people is that we grow up and people don't like us. Like,
Yeah, yeah,
so
that's
but yeah,
true.
I hear you. It would have been nice to see like some solid, just like solid rep where like, we really like the character.
Like, just like I like not so like lazily like thrown in, like
Hmm.
more thought out and more like thought to it of other than just like we need to put representation in here and here it is, like I wish there was
Yeah.
like more like building around it instead of just like I think the lead up to like Tara's coming out was really nice, but like yeah, with it seeing it in retrospect in season one, I wish that there were more of that and it wasn't just stuffed into season two, I guess.
Agreed.
Yeah,
Agreed.
yeah.
Yeah.
So after her little run-in with Sebastian and him getting away, she returns to campus and tells Rosalind about Sebastian, and Beatrix wakes up in Stella's bed next to her side, and Stella's able to tell her what happened, and like
Oh,
it's just so sad. It's so sad. Like we see like the realization come across Beatrix's face of like, I don't have my magic. She even tries. So she's looking at her hands like she can sense that it's just gone. And
hmm.
oh, it's so
We
sad.
know Sebastian has it too. Like
Mm-hmm.
between using Marco and Beatrix, like he lit that place up. Like,
Mm-hmm.
so
Yeah.
at first, I will say,
Yeah.
like off the record, because at the very end, we see Beatrix get her magic back. But I really think she didn't she like not actually have her magic at this point? Like she really
Yeah.
was a
Yeah.
powerless fairy. Yeah.
Yeah. She was. Yeah.
So she had to make the deal to get it back with Sebastian. But it made me like that's what confused me when I messaged you the other day. I was like, wait, did she know that like she was like,
Yeah.
in the lodge was she playing dead, I guess, but I don't know.
Oh my gosh.
I love that scene though where Headmistress Griselda really comes out of Rosalind when she's screaming at these
Yes.
students to go back to their rooms. I'm like, that is literally from Winx Club, like
Yes. Yes. You
right
can't tell me
there.
otherwise.
Oh my
Yeah.
gosh. Also, like, I love how she wasn't so hard on Bloom, realizing that, like, realistically, yeah, they went to the pub, but like, come on. All the teachers on this campus who started, the annual mixer and stuff like that, or wait, what was it called? The keg or
Sophia.
something?
Oh,
Uh,
yes.
like
Yeah.
she knows that like all this stuff goes on. So like, but she's like, in the
It's a
grand scheme
minor
of
fuck up.
things, it's like a minor fuck up. Yeah, like yeah. And
She
so
said,
I'm
take the
just
win. And
yeah,
Bloom's
take the
like,
win.
thank you.
Thanks. Like, okay, okay. She's kind of
Yeah.
I've never heard that before. So, but that's
Yeah.
also part of her character. She's a bit diabolical, and knowing that, like, oh yeah, that's like a. It's almost like she says it to like get Bloom in her grasp a little bit more,
No,
saying like, oh,
absolutely.
she's really
She's a
chill.
manipulative bitch. We
I
know
know she's
this.
just
She's
so evil.
bad.
Like,
Yeah.
I use
Yeah.
evil loosely again, but like in this case, well, she's got some, yeah, yeah.
Ooh, yeah.
So now we're back in the Winx suite and we see Flora walk into Tara's room and Tara's like sitting on her
Hmm.
bed. And despite their earlier attention, Tara and Flora make up and, decide that they're going to support each other and they like come to an understanding within each other. But this
Hmm.
isn't just like Flora can tell that something deeper is going on. And so
Hmm.
reveals that she believes the reason she picks shitty, unattainable guys is because she's not into guys and that she is gay.
Yeah. And she doesn't say it at first, and like
Yeah,
Flora does
Flora
the
has
kind
to
of nudge
clue
her,
her in
like,
on it.
yeah, she's like, it's okay to say it. It's like Tara's so scared of accepting because she can't accept who she is. She's afraid other
Mhm.
people will also not accept her as who she is too, which is, I feel like, the internal struggle of coming out for sure, especially if you didn't
Yeah,
grow up knowing who you were and being open to exploring that.
for real, very
Mhm.
tough. And I think for her too, because her life has been so focused on other things. She talks about it, with her experience with Riven when she, had previously kissed Riven and like
Yeah.
it threw up in her hand. And then he, was being all weird towards her after that,
Griffin.
right?
Stupid idiot.
Season one jerk Riven, like
Yes,
the
yeah.
Riven that wouldn't help the farmers Riven, like
Yeah, the Riven that wouldn't go back in and save Musa, probably.
yeah. Oh, going back to the classroom episode in episode two, though, of this season, when Flora's talking about like everybody's like relationships and like,
Yes.
Aisha's like, oh, I'm not having sex with anyone. And like, you just see Tara, like looking back on this in retrospect, if you go back to this point in episode two when they're all in chemistry class, Tara is like dying in the closet listening to this conversation.
Mm-hmm.
You can see
Mm-hmm.
it on her face the way she looks up. And I'm like, oh my gosh,
Yeah. Yeah.
solid
It's
moment
there.
right there. It's there. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
So,
definitely.
but I really
Man.
love the way that they form a genuine understanding of each other in this moment and kind
Mm-hmm.
of like what they need to hear from each other, but also from within themselves.
Yeah.
Like with the way they talk to each other and apologize. It's so sweet. It's a really good
Mm-hmm.
scene.
Yeah,
So,
it is. And I love how, like, it's nice because Flora is what Tara needed in that moment. And,
mhm.
like, you,
And yeah, the fate
yeah.
of Flora coming to Althea in the first place, knowing that like, Flora totally came to Althea because, she got wind that Harvey and Sam were
Mm-hmm.
on their way out. Like it's
Yeah.
at least I think she did, but
Oh, no,
like
absolutely. That's what she implied.
pretty much,
Yeah.
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 But like it's just fate. It's fate that she showed up and that this all happened because without her
Mhm.
here, we may not have seen this growth from Tara, but it unfolds the way
Yeah,
it's supposed to.
yeah,
So,
it really spurs on Tara's growth a lot, which it
mhm.
seems like that's the role that Flora has played in Tara's life, for a long time, even before we got to see it in Fate. Like that's what, yeah, I love that. I
It's
think
so
it's so sweet.
sweet.
Oh my gosh. So Stella, Flora, and Tara join Bloom, where Stella says she's glad to see Bloom, and they're in the everything hall, right? And
Mhm, yeah,
when
there's
Sky returns and reveals that Sebastian's power was too much, even though he thought that she broke the connection, it was too powerful, and he regained control of Andreas, and he had no choice but to kill his biological father to save his adopted father.
his
And
biological father
that
that's never even really been there as the father, but is there now, but is also there with the
Mhm.
adoptive father.
Mhm.
And the
Mhm.
biological father tells him to kill, like, kill him. It's just
And the fact that this is not the time to make this joke, but I'm gonna do it. The fact that like Saul, the whole arc of Saul is that he lied about potentially killing Andreas to Sky his whole life, and then Sky having to literally kill Andreas.
Mhm.
That
Yes.
is
It's
crazy.
just, oh my gosh. It's
Which like now, I'm sorry, which like now I feel like Sky should have a deeper understanding of why Saul had to do what he did.
yes, yes, you're spot
Oh,
on, Lola. Like
oh,
that is literally perfectly said. Like
yes.
so layered.
Oh,
This show is so fucking layered. Oh my
so
God.
much. It's so
Gotta, I just
much.
gotta get that out real quick because that's Jesus. Like, oh my God. But yeah, it's so true. Like, it's sad. It's so sad, especially because it's like it's coded from like the second Winx movie too, where Arendor dies at the very end, but of course he comes
Yeah.
back, but like not here. Like no,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yikes. Yeah. Well,
Oh, and this
yeah.
last moment,
Oh, yeah. Then, out of nowhere, everyone's like, oh, where's Musa? And then Riven walks in with an unconscious, blood soaked Musa. And he's like, help, somebody help. And then it cuts the credits, of course, because it always does.
oh my gosh,
It,
that moment.
oh, man. And like, just like the season one coding of like Winx Club of Riven carrying Musa, in the Minotaur episode, like,
Yeah,
get out of
it's right
town.
there. It's the same
Get all the
thing,
way out. Oh my
right?
gosh. Oh.
It's so cleverly crafted. I'm so glad that they put that in there.
And
So
the
like,
reviews of Fate fans like just rejoice and go crazy and absolutely feral.
right? And then to add to this moment, remember how like Bloom was like, "Where's Aisha?" Like earlier at the
Yes.
pub. Well, this time Aisha goes, "Where's Musa?" And then like it just
Mm.
leads into the shot, and the look on Bloom's face when she sees Musa. Oh my gosh,
True.
Abby, what the
Mm.
hell? Like it was so good. Like the way that I like just felt in that moment, seeing everything. I'm just like, oh my gosh, like
Hmm.
is she gonna be okay? Like I was so
Yeah.
nervous when I saw this for the first time.
I know. Oh my gosh. It's wild. But that leads us to the end of season season two, episode, what are we, 4? Wow.
For yeah,
Wow.
right.
That's crazy. This is like the mid-season finale.
And they even
The
like when it comes to credits too, they changed the credit music here. So
yeah. Man, yeah, it really does feel like a really epic like mid-season finale. Like it is the peak of the season. We're like heading into the last half of the season, and it just gets like crazier from here. Like it, oh my
yeah,
gosh,
there's a roller coaster going forward now.
yeah, like we're in for a ride
A
for sure.
plunge down a dark path. Like
Yeah, yeah. I did want to talk about some trivia for this episode, though. So we know that as we've been walking through the season, every episode is some reference to a fairy thing, a witch thing, a magic thing. The title, is from some piece of literature, a poem, an artwork, whatever. So this episode's title, An Hour Before the Devil Fell, is actually from the play The Crucible, which is, of course, about the Salem witch trials by Arthur Miller. And according to the Sparks notes of this play, quote, just as God thought the devil was beautiful until he fell from heaven, God thinks that all of the accused are beautiful until they do something to them as well. Hale is pretty much reiterating that anyone is capable of evil, even someone as frail as Rebecca Nurse in the play. So, like, this is
oh,
what? What?
Rosalind Hale?
Shut up, get out.
No, like it's Rosalind
Yes.
Hale. Yeah, it's
Yes.
like oh my gosh.
That's crazy.
That is well, we figured it out. Because I always wondered where did the Hale
Yeah, where
come.
did the surname come from?
Well, now we figured it
The
out on the
Crucible.
Winx Forever podcast. Like,
Oh, but yeah, like, so the character is pretty much reiterating that anyone's capable of evil and how, like, even those we least expect. And for Bloom and the gang, that was Sebastian, and like, ew, it's just. I love the layers, and I love that, like, even down to the intentionality of like what to title the episodes, like it's so good.
it's
Ah!
just solid. That's a good revelation. Oh
Mhm.
my gosh, the final revelation in the trivia section.
So fun.
It's good.
But we, of course, cannot end this episode without discussing our Fate Forever moments, which
For
are the moments
sure.
in the episode that either are our favorites or remind us the most of the original Winx Club series. So, Dane, what would yours be from this episode?
Oh, my fate forever moment. I feel like every time we do this, I always forget to write it down in the notes. But it's a really hard one, honestly,
hmm
because like there are so many good moments. But I love the pub scene. Everything about the pub
Mm.
scene and just all the nuanced interactions and just everything that goes down within that. I love
Yes.
it. I just everything about it. That whole scene. I can't pick
Absolutely.
any moment from there. I feel like it's all just so Winx coded, but yeah.
Yes. Yeah. And for me, like too, like I originally was like, oh, for sure the pub scene, because for same reasons, like it's so Winx, like even the drama of it all, like, oh my God, it was perfect, right?
Uh,
However, I decided though, my Fate Forever moment, which I'm glad you picked that one because it can have its moment, because this one for me, it's gotta be the scene with Bloom and Sebastian in the shop when she like confronts him, like, oh my God, it's incredible, like how much they took from the original series, like especially like in season 3 for this scene, like it's perfect, like no notes,
yeah,
like it's so good.
it's a solid scene. Like that was like yeah, it's
hmm
pretty good. It's
Yeah.
up there.
Oh my goodness. But
Bonus mention would be the bioluminescence scene. That's my second. Like,
the magic of the
oh,
bioluminescence.
I
Yeah.
love the way they filmed it. I love the sunlight. Like, I'm
hmm
obsessed with bioluminescence. So like seeing that scene is like
Okay.
it might actually be my first one, but like yeah.
Oh, I love that. That's so fun.
Have
Well,
you
and
we talk about it after, but yeah.
okay. Incredible. Well, that is the end of our Fate season 2 episode 4 rewatch. I hope that you enjoyed it. It really really does, you know, um it really, like, for me is one of the best mid-season finales we get in a Winx Club property. Like for me it's up there with like Techna closing the Omega Dimension portal. Like it is like up there, in mid-season finales. So I love it. I love it so much.
Right. Like going into that too, like I think that's something so important to recognize too, like what makes a Winx story, like the legend of the Winx beyond Winx Club and World of Winx and Fate the
hmm
Winx Saga, like the Winx story that we're going to see adapted into legend time and time again, like going forward throughout the rest of time, because eventually this
hmm
story does become legend. Like,
Yeah.
what makes the Winx legend the Winx? Like I think that like
hmm
that's always a good thing to think about, like going forward. And
Yeah.
I think Fate does a lot of that. Like we really see a new
Yes.
layer to it too. So
Oh,
it makes me
absolutely.
think like the next iteration that we're gonna see, the Winx Club reboot, obviously, but like also the live action
Yes.
Winx movie. I really think that we're gonna see elements from everything like in there.
Absolutely. And I love too, like our friend Josh from the Winx Chronicles says in, his reiteration of the Winx story, like the greatest stories are never told just once.
Yep, he's
And it's
right on.
so
Like
true. Oh.
so true.
Oh my gosh. I love that. Incredible.
Same.
Well, what a great note to end on. We will be back again soon for another Fate Season 2 rewatch episode. So until next time, I'm Lola Valentine.
And I'm JustDaneDane.
And this is the Winx Forever podcast. Thanks so much for listening. If you enjoyed this episode of the Winx Forever podcast, be sure to like or subscribe on your preferred streaming platform so that you're notified when new episodes are released. The theme for the Winx Forever podcast is the song She Makes Magic by Big Wild.